Story 1. The Mile Marker That Pass. Jake Morrison had been driving the I-80 corridor between Omaha and Des Moines for 12 years. He knew every rest stop, every truck wash, every diner that served decent coffee at 3 in the morning. The route was as familiar to him as his own driveway, which is why what happened on the night of September 14, 2019, shattered everything he thought he knew about the road. It started as a routine Friday night haul. Jake had picked up a load of electronics from a warehouse outside Omaha at 11 p.m., destination Des Moines by 6 a.m. The weather was clear, traffic was light, and his 2018 Freightliner Cascadia was running smooth. He'd made this trip hundreds of times, usually arriving early enough to grab breakfast before the delivery window opened. Around 1:30 a.m., Jake passed mile marker 76. He remembered it specifically because his fuel gauge showed 3/4 full, and he made a mental note that he wouldn't need to stop until he hit the Flying J past mile marker 110. The highway stretched empty before him, his headlights cutting through darkness so complete it felt like driving through a tunnel of black velvet. 15 minutes later, according to his dashboard clock, he passed mile marker 76 again. At first, Jake thought he'd misread it. Maybe it was 67 or 86. But no, the green rectangular sign clearly read 76 in those reflective white numbers. He checked his GPS. It showed him on I-80 westbound, exactly where he should be, progressing normally toward Des Moines. The little blue dot moved steadily along the highlighted route. Jake shrugged it off. He was tired. His eyes were playing tricks. He turned up the radio, some late-night talk show discussing conspiracy theories, and cracked his window to let in the cold September air. The cab smelled like the beef jerky he'd been snacking on and the pine air freshener hanging from his rearview mirror. Another 15 minutes passed. Mile marker 76 appeared again in his headlights. This time, Jake's hands tightened on the steering wheel. His heart rate picked up. He looked at the odometer. It had definitely moved. He traveled 6 miles according to the reading. His GPS still showed steady progress. But that mile marker, that goddamn mile marker, stood there like a sentinel mocking him. He grabbed his CB radio. "This is Big Jake on I-80 westbound. Anyone out there got ears on? Static. Come on, somebody. This is Big Jake, channel 19, anybody?" More static. For just a moment, Jake thought he heard something underneath the white noise. Not words exactly, but something rhythmic, almost like breathing. He released the mic button and the sound disappeared. Jake's mouth went dry. He'd been through Montana whiteouts, Texas dust storms, and a tornado scare in Oklahoma that had him sheltering under an overpass for 2 hours. None of those experiences had made his skin crawl the way this silence did. The highway remained absolutely empty. No cars, no trucks, no lights in the distance. Just his rig, the asphalt, and the darkness pressing in from all sides. When mile marker 76 appeared for the 4th time, Jake started to panic. He checked everything. Speed, steady 65 miles per hour. Odometer still climbing. Fuel gauge now reading half full, which meant he'd burned through a quarter tank. Time, 2:47 a.m. He'd been driving for over an hour since he first saw that marker, but according to the signs, he hadn't moved at all. Jake decided to pull over. Maybe if he stopped, reset himself, the universe would correct itself. But when he started to ease onto the shoulder, something made him hesitate. The shoulder looked wrong. The gravel seemed to shimmer in his headlights, undulating like water. And beyond it, the darkness wasn't just dark anymore. It had texture like static on an old television, pixels of black and darker black churning against each other. He stayed on the highway. Mile marker 76 came again, and again, and again. By the 7th time, Jake was crying. Not sobbing, just silent tears streaming down his face as his hands gripped the wheel with white-knuckled desperation. He tried his cell phone, but it showed no service. He tried the CB radio again, and this time he definitely heard something. A voice, distant and distorted, saying words he couldn't quite make out. It sounded like it was coming from very far away or from underwater. The cadence was wrong. The syllables stretched and compressed in ways that hurt his ears. The worst part was the sameness of it all. Every time he passed mile marker 76, everything was identical. The same slight curve in the road afterward. The same stand of trees barely visible on the right side. The same tiny chip in his windshield catching the light at exactly the same angle. It was like watching a video loop, except he was inside it, burning fuel, aging, his bladder getting fuller, his thermos of coffee getting emptier. Jake started talking to himself, narrating everything he did. "Okay, Jake, you're going to keep driving. You're going to stay calm. This is some kind of GPS. Maybe you're having a stroke. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe you're dying and this is what dying feels like. But you're going to keep driving because what else can you do?" On the 13th loop past mile marker 76, something changed. There was a car on the side of the road. Jake nearly swerved when he saw it. A sedan, dark-colored, maybe blue or black, parked on the shoulder with its hazard lights blinking. As he approached, his headlights illuminated a figure standing next to the driver's door. A woman in a white dress, blonde hair, waving her arms for help. Every instinct screamed at Jake to keep driving. Nothing about this was right. Nothing about this entire night was right. But she was a person, another human being in this nightmare loop, and maybe she knew what was happening. Maybe together they could figure this out. He started to slow down. As he got closer, details emerged. The woman's dress wasn't white. It was gray, covered in something dark. Her hair wasn't blonde. It was colorless, like an absence of color, and her arms weren't waving. They were moving, yes, but in a way that arms shouldn't move, with too many joints, bending in too many places. Jake accelerated hard, the diesel engine roaring as he blasted past. In his side mirror, he saw the figure watching him. Where its face should be was just smooth skin, like an unfinished mannequin. Then it smiled, the skin splitting horizontally across where the mouth should be, opening far too wide. "No, no, 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 no," Jake chanted, pushing his speed to 75, then 80. The truck shuddered. His cargo shifted. He didn't care. Mile marker 76 appeared ahead, but this time as he passed it, something felt different. The air pressure in the cab changed, his ears popping like he'd climbed a mountain. The radio erupted with sound, every channel blasting at once, voices and music and static all layered into a cacophony that made him scream. His headlights flickered, and in the split second of darkness, he saw things on the road ahead. Shapes, figures. Hundreds of them standing shoulder to shoulder across all lanes. The lights came back on. The road was empty, and there, ahead in the distance, was mile marker 77. Jake let out a sound between a laugh and a sob. Mile marker 78 came next, then 79, then 80. The world snapped back to normal like a rubber band released. His CB radio crackled with normal chatter, truckers discussing traffic and weather. His cell phone showed full bars. The GPS pinged cheerfully, announcing he would arrive at his destination in 2 hours and 37 minutes. He pulled into the next restaurant and sat in his cab for an hour, shaking. He called his wife, woke her up, told her he loved her. She asked if he was okay. He said yes, just wanted to hear her voice. When he finally looked at his log, it showed he'd lost exactly 2 hours. The time stamp jumped from 1:45 a.m. to 3:45 a.m. with nothing in between. Jake made his delivery on time. He still drives I-80, still makes the Omaha to Des Moines run. But now he watches the mile markers obsessively, counting each one, making sure they progress in order. And he never ever drives that route on a Friday night anymore. Twice he's had to turn down lucrative loads because they would put him on that highway after midnight on a Friday. His dispatcher thinks he's superstitious. His wife thinks he's stressed. Jake doesn't try to explain. How do you tell people that mile marker 76 is still out there, waiting? That somewhere between the numbers painted on those green signs is a space that isn't quite part of our world. And if you hit it at just the wrong moment, You might find yourself driving in circles while something watches from the darkness, learning how to smile. Story 2. The truck stop that didn't exist. Marcus Chen pulled into the truck stop at 4:17 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in late October 2021, desperately needing fuel, food, and a bathroom. He'd been driving through Wyoming on I-25, heading north with a load of furniture from Denver to Billings, when his fuel gauge dropped into the red zone faster than it should have. A leak somewhere, maybe, or a faulty sensor. Either way, he needed diesel now. The truck stop appeared like an oasis. Big rig parking, a brightly lit main building, even a repair garage off to the side. The sign read Frontier Fuel and Food in retro neon letters that gave the whole place a 1950s vibe. Marcus didn't remember seeing it on his route maps, but Wyoming was full of small, independent operations that didn't always show up on GPS. He parked his Kenworth W900 in a spot near the building and climbed down from the cab. The October air bit at his exposed skin, cold enough that he could see his breath. The parking lot was nearly empty, just 2 other trucks parked at the far end and a single SUV near the main entrance. Odd for this time of morning. Usually these places were packed with drivers catching sleep or grabbing an early breakfast. The pumps were old-fashioned, the kind with actual physical numbers that rotated as fuel flowed, not digital displays. Marcus thought that was charming in a nostalgic. He swiped his fuel card. The reader beeped, processing for longer than normal, then displayed "Please see cashier." Great. Marcus trudged toward the building, his boots crunching on gravel that seemed too loud in the pre-dawn silence. No traffic sounds from the highway, no wind, just his footsteps and his breathing. The door chimed when he pushed it open, one of those old bell on a spring setups. Inside, the truck stop looked frozen in time. Linoleum floors in a black and white checkerboard pattern. Chrome-trimmed counters, a lunch counter with red vinyl stools. Shelves stocked with road atlases, CB radios, and other merchandise that seemed decades out of date. Behind the counter stood a man in his 60s, wearing a name tag that read Earl. He had a kind face weathered by years, and he smiled when Marcus approached. "Help you, son. Pump 4 isn't taking my card," Marcus said. "Need to prepay or something." Earl's smile never wavered. "We don't take cards here, cash only. There's an ATM in the corner if you need it." Marcus felt a flicker of irritation. What kind of operation didn't take cards in 2021? But he was tired, his bladder was screaming, and he needed fuel. "Fine. Let me hit the restroom first, then I'll get cash. Can I fill my thermos with coffee too?" "Help yourself. Fresh pot just brewed." Earl gestured toward the coffee station. The bathroom was spotlessly clean, which struck Marcus as strange. Truck stop bathrooms were notoriously disgusting, but this one gleamed. The tiles looked new. No graffiti, no weird smells, nothing. Even the soap dispenser was full. Marcus did his business, washed his hands, and studied his reflection in the mirror. He looked tired. 36 hours into a 3-day run, still had another 10 hours to go. When he came out, a woman was sitting at the lunch counter. She wore a blue dress and had dark hair pulled into a bun. She was eating eggs and toast, a cup of coffee steaming beside her plate. She didn't look up when Marcus walked past. At the ATM, Marcus inserted his card and requested $200. The machine whirred and clunked, taking its time before spitting out his cash in crisp $20 bills. He was walking back to the counter when he noticed the calendar hanging on the wall behind Earl. It showed October 1952. Marcus stared at it, his brain struggling to process. That had to be a decoration, right? Part of the retro aesthetic. But something about it looked used, with certain days circled in pencil, notes written in the margins in tiny handwriting. "How much you need, son?" Earl asked, still smiling that unchanging smile. $100 on pump 4, Marcus said, distracted. He was looking around the store more carefully now. Everything was just slightly wrong. The products on the shelves weren't vintage reproductions. They were vintage. Actual old cigarette brands he'd only seen in museums, candy bars with wrappers that predated him by decades, a rack of postcards showing Wyoming landscapes with cars from the 1950s. Earl took the money and rang it up on an antique cash register, the kind with keys you push down. "You look confused, son. Everything all right?" "This place," Marcus said slowly. "How long has it been here?" "Oh, since 1947, Earl said proudly. "My father built it. Been running it ever since." Marcus did the math. If Earl's father built it in 1947 and Earl was maybe 65 now, that meant, but no, that didn't work. Earl would have to be nearly 90 to have been running it ever since. Unless, "What year is it?" Marcus asked, and immediately felt stupid for asking. Earl's smile flickered for just a moment. "Why, it's 1952, son. October 19th, 1952. You've been driving too long, need to rest." Marcus's heart started pounding. This wasn't right, this wasn't funny. He backed toward the door. "I need to go, keep the money, keep it." "But you need fuel," Earl said, his voice taking on an edge. "Your truck's on empty, you won't make it back to the highway." "I'll manage," Marcus said, his hand finding the door handle. The woman at the counter turned to look at him. Her face was hollow, sunken, her eyes too large and too dark. "You can't leave," she said in a voice like dried leaves. "No one leaves." Marcus yanked the door open and ran. The bell chimed behind him, cheerful and horrible. He sprinted across the parking lot toward his truck, fumbling for his keys. Behind him, he heard the door chime again. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, over and over, chiming like laughter. He risked a glance back. People were emerging from the building. Earl, the woman, others, a man in a mechanic's jumpsuit, a family with 2 children, a state trooper. All of them walking slowly, steadily toward him, their faces showing various stages of decay and wrongness. Marcus reached his truck, hauled himself up, slammed the door and hit the locks. His hands shook so badly he dropped his keys. He could see the figures getting closer, surrounding his truck. Their mouths were moving, saying something in unison, but he couldn't hear it through the cab's insulation. He got the key in the ignition. The engine turned over once, twice, 3 times. "Come on, come on, come on." On the 4th try, it roared to life. Marcus threw it in and stomped the accelerator. The truck lurched forward. The figures scattered, but they didn't seem afraid or upset. They just watched him go, standing in the parking lot, growing smaller in his mirrors. Earl raised one hand in a wave. Marcus's fuel gauge still showed empty, but the truck kept running. He drove for 20 minutes in pure panic before he saw real highway lights ahead. A normal truck stop, one he recognized, part of a national chain. He pulled in, got fuel from modern pumps that took his card without issue, and sat in the parking lot as the sun came up. When he looked up the Frontier Fuel and Food later, he found a newspaper article from 1986. The truck stop had burned down in a fire that killed everyone inside. 7 people, trapped when the exits mysteriously locked. Among the victims, Earl Henderson, the owner, a waitress named Dorothy, a mechanic named Jack, and 4 travelers who'd stopped for fuel. The article included a photo. Marcus recognized the building. It was identical to where he'd been, down to the neon sign. There was a follow-up article from 1987. The ruins had been demolished, the land sold. A new truck stop had been built on the same spot, modern and safe. That truck stop had also burned down in 1993 with similar mysterious circumstances. 3 more deaths. After that, the land was deemed cursed. No one would build there. It sat empty. Marcus checked his route tracking data. Between 4:15 a.m. and 5:20 a.m. on October 19, 2021, his truck's GPS showed no movement. According to the satellite data, he'd been sitting on the side of I-25 the entire time, not moving. But his dashcam showed him driving, showed the truck stop, showed his panic. He went over that footage frame by frame. In one shot, when he glanced at his side mirror while fleeing, he caught a glimpse of his own truck in the reflection. The Kenworth looked old, weathered, the paint faded and the chrome rusted. And behind the wheel, visible through the driver's side window, was a figure that wasn't quite Marcus. It had his shape, wore his clothes, but the face was wrong, stretched and pale. Marcus drives different routes now. He won't take I-25 through Wyoming anymore, even though it adds hours to certain runs. His company thinks he's being difficult. They've threatened to fire him twice, but Marcus won't budge. He's seen the calendar, seen the faces, seen what happens to travelers who stop at the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes, late at night, his CB radio picks up strange signals. A voice that sounds like Earl, offering fuel and food to any drivers who need it. Giving directions to a truck stop that shouldn't exist. Marcus always warns them off, tells them to keep driving, but he doesn't know if they listen. And once, just once, he passed a hitchhiker on a dark Wyoming highway. The man wore clothes from the 1950s and gave Marcus a cheerful wave as the truck roared past. In his rearview mirror, Marcus saw the man turn and walk back the way he'd come, towards something that shimmered in the darkness like neon lights reflected in desert air. The odometer on Marcus's truck rolled over 500,000 miles last month. It's been a good truck, reliable, never let him down except for that one night when the fuel gauge dropped to empty for no reason. The dealership checked it thoroughly afterward. They found nothing wrong. The gauge works perfectly, they said. Must have been a glitch. Marcus didn't argue. He knows it wasn't a glitch. It was an invitation. And somewhere along I-25, in a place that exists between the numbers on a map, Earl is still smiling behind his counter, waiting for the next traveler who needs fuel badly enough to ignore the wrongness, to push past the warning signs their instincts are screaming. The coffee pot is always fresh. The bathroom is always clean. And the calendar still shows October 19th, 1952. Always October 19th. Forever October 19th. A perfect loop of a day that ended in fire and screaming but somehow kept going, kept existing, kept pulling in anyone unlucky enough to need what it offered. Story 3. The passenger no one else could see. Denise Parker had been a long-haul trucker for 8 years when she picked up the passenger outside of Amarillo, Texas, on a humid June night in 2018. Company policy strictly forbade hitchhikers, but the young woman standing under the broken streetlight at the rest area looked desperate, holding a cardboard sign that read "Anywhere but here." Denise wasn't a soft touch usually. She knew the dangers, knew the statistics about drivers who stopped for strangers, but something about the woman's posture, the way she hunched against an invisible wind, even though the night air hung still and heavy, triggered Denise's protective instincts. She'd been a young woman alone once, scared and vulnerable. She remembered what that felt like. She pulled her Peterbilt 579 to a stop and rolled down the passenger window. "I can take you as far as Albuquerque," Denise called out. "But that's it, I'm not detouring." The woman looked up. She was maybe 25, dark hair, pale skin, jeans and a green t-shirt. Nothing remarkable about her except her eyes, which seemed too large for her face. "Albuquerque is perfect," she said, her voice soft. Thank you so much." She climbed up into the passenger seat with a small backpack, her only possession apparently. Denise waited for her to buckle in, then pulled back onto I-40 westbound. The New Mexico border was about an hour away. "I'm Denise," she said, trying to be friendly. "What's your name?" "Emma," the woman said. She stared straight ahead through the windshield, not looking at Denise. "I really appreciate this." "You don't know what it means." They rode in silence for a while. Denise tried to make conversation a few more times, asking where Emma was from, what she was running from, because she was clearly running from something, whether she needed help. Emma gave short, vague answers. From the Midwest. Family trouble. No, she'd be fine once she got to Albuquerque. 20 minutes into the drive, Denise's CB radio crackled to life. "Hey there, Peterbilt running westbound at mile marker 43. This is Bear Claw behind you. You got ears on." Denise picked up the mic. "This is Denise, I hear you, Bear Claw. You doing all right up there? Saw you stopped at that rest area, wanted to make sure you're okay." I'm fine, Denise said, picked up a passenger heading to Albuquerque. A long pause, then, Denise, I'm looking at your truck right now. I'm about a quarter mile behind you. I can see your cab clear as day. There's nobody in your passenger seat. Denise laughed, glancing at Emma. You need glasses, Bear Claw. I've got a woman sitting right here. Denise. The voice on the radio had changed, become serious, almost scared. I'm pulling up alongside you. Look at my truck when I pass. A minute later, a Kenworth pulled into the left lane and began overtaking Denise's Peterbilt. The driver, a heavy-set man with a beard, looked over at her as he passed. He stared not at Emma but at the empty space where Emma sat. His face went pale. He made a gesture, finger across his throat. Get rid of it. Then he accelerated away, his truck disappearing into the night faster than was safe or legal. Denise's hands tightened on the wheel. She looked at Emma. Emma was still there, solid and real, her backpack on her lap. He can't see you, Denise said slowly. Most people can't, Emma replied, still not looking at Denise. You're special. You've always been able to see things others don't, haven't you? Denise's mouth went dry. She had actually. When she was a child, she'd seen her grandmother standing at the foot of her bed 3 days after her grandmother died, waving goodbye. She'd seen shadows that moved wrong, heard voices in empty rooms. Her mother had taken her to doctors. Eventually, Denise learned to ignore it, to pretend she was normal. What are you? Denise whispered. Someone who needs a ride, Emma said. That's all. I won't hurt you, I promise. They drove in heavy silence. Denise considered pulling over, ordering Emma out, but something stopped her. Curiosity, maybe, or the certainty that if Emma wanted to harm her, she could have done so already. The highway stretched empty before them, the headlights cutting through darkness that seemed thicker than normal, more texture. Why Albuquerque? Denise finally asked. I died there, Emma said matter-of-factly. In 2003, hit and run on Central Avenue. The driver never stopped, never got caught. I've been wandering since then, trying to get back. Every few years, I make it a little closer. You're helping me finish the journey. Denise's skin crawled. So you're a ghost. I prefer echo, Emma said. Ghost makes it sound scary. I'm just stuck, like a song that keeps playing because nobody turned off the radio. I need to get back to where I died so I can finally stop playing. That's not how ghosts work in the movies, Denise said, trying for humor to cover her terror. Movies get a lot wrong, Emma said. She finally turned to look at Denise, and when their eyes met, Denise saw depths in Emma's gaze that made her stomach lurch. Not emptiness but fullness, too much existence crammed into a space meant for one life. In real death, there's no bright light, no angels, no peace. There's just momentum. You keep going in the direction you were headed when you died, and if that death was sudden enough, violent enough, you can't stop yourself. You just keep moving, keep existing, keep trying to complete the journey. That sounds like hell, Denise managed. It is, Emma agreed. They crossed into New Mexico. Denise's hands ached from gripping the wheel. Her CB radio had gone silent, not even static. Her cell phone showed no signal even though this stretch of I-40 usually had decent coverage. The dashboard lights seemed dimmer than they should be, and the darkness outside had become absolute. No stars, no moon, no lights from other vehicles. How many times have you done this? Denise asked. Hitched rides, I mean. Hundreds, Emma said. Most drivers can't see me, so I just sit in their cabs invisible, stealing their momentum to pull myself westward. But sometimes someone like you comes along, someone sensitive, and then I can be solid, be real for a while. It's nice. I miss being real. What happened to the other drivers who could see you? Emma was quiet for a moment. Nothing bad if that's what you're worried about. They dropped me off, confused and scared, and went on with their lives. Some of them probably think needed me. Some probably know better. I leave them alone afterward. I'm not malicious, Denise. I'm just trying to go home. Albuquerque appeared on the horizon, a glow of lights against the dark. Denise felt relief wash through her. This nightmare ride was almost over. She'd drop Emma off, drive straight to a church or a bar or somewhere with lots of people and lights, and try to forget this ever happened. Take the Central Avenue exit, Emma instructed. I'll show you where. Denise followed the directions, driving through Albuquerque's empty 3 a.m. streets. Emma guided her to a quiet residential neighborhood, older homes with gravel yards and chain-link fences. Here, Emma said, pull over here. Denise stopped in front of a house with darkened windows. A memorial sat on the corner, one of those roadside shrines with flowers and a wooden cross. Even in the dark, Denise could see the name painted on the cross. Emma Rodriguez, 1978-2003. This is it, Emma said. She sounded tired, her voice fading. This is where I died. Some drunk kid ran the stop sign, hit me while I was crossing to my parents' house. I'd been visiting for the weekend. I was happy that night. I remember being happy. What happens now? Denise asked. Now I get out, walk over there, and stop existing, Emma said. She unbuckled her seatbelt. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for making me real one last time. Wait, Denise said. Will it hurt? Emma smiled, the first genuine emotion Denise had seen from her. I don't think so. I hope not. I've been hurting for 15 years. I'm ready for it to stop. She opened the door and climbed down. Denise watched as Emma walked across the street toward the memorial. With each step, she became more transparent, more undefined, like a photograph fading in sunlight. By the time she reached the cross, she was barely visible, just a shimmer in the night air. Then she was gone. Denise sat there for 10 minutes, shaking. The street was just a street. The memorial was just a memorial. The night was just a night. Everything felt normal, solid, real in a way it hadn't while Emma was in the cab. She drove to the nearest truck stop, got coffee, sat in the bright fluorescent light of the convenience store for an hour. Other drivers came and went. She eavesdropped on their conversations, normal talk about routes and weather and cargo. The world was normal again. But when Denise got back in her truck, there was a small scrap of paper on the passenger seat. She hadn't left it there. She picked it up. In faint, feminine handwriting, it read, "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for making me matter." Emma Denise kept that note in her wallet for years. She's retired now, runs a small diner in Oklahoma. But she still thinks about Emma, about that night, about the hitchhiker no one else could see. Sometimes she wonders how many other echoes are out there, invisible passengers stealing momentum from drivers who can't see them, trying desperately to get home. And she wonders about the ones who never make it home, who keep riding forever, trapped in an endless journey on highways that stretch into eternity. She's learned to recognize them sometimes, sees the flicker in her peripheral vision when she's driving at night, feels the weight of unseen passengers settling into the seat beside her. She doesn't pick up hitchhikers anymore, visible or otherwise. Not because she's afraid, but because she knows now that some journeys are meant to be taken alone, that some destinations can only be reached when you stop trying to be carried by someone else's motion. The memorial on Central Avenue in Albuquerque is still there, though the flowers have long since wilted and been replaced dozens of times. Emma's parents still live in that house, elderly now, keeping vigil for a daughter who died too young. They've never seen Emma's echo, never felt her presence. Only Denise knows that Emma finally made it home, finally stopped. And that knowledge is both a comfort and a weight. Because if Emma could get stuck for 15 years trying to complete one final journey, what other unfinished business keeps echoes tied to this world? How many ghosts, wraiths, remnants, and echoes are out there, hitching rides, borrowing lives, trying to reach the places they were meant to be when death cut their stories short? Denise doesn't have answers. She just has memories, a faded note in her wallet, and the certain knowledge that the world is stranger and sadder than most people imagine. Every time she sees a hitchhiker by the roadside now, she wonders, are they alive or are they just echoes? And if they're echoes, where are they trying to go? What unfinished journey keeps them walking along highways in the dark, thumbs out, hoping someone sensitive enough will stop and help them make those final miles home? Story 4. The Convoy That Disappeared. Thomas "Red" Callahan had been convoy leader for the overnight express runs between Portland and Seattle for 6 years. Every Tuesday and Thursday night, He'd lead a group of 5 trucks up I-5, hauling fresh produce and perishables that needed to reach distribution centers by dawn. The route was straightforward, the drivers experienced, and the operation ran like clockwork. Until March 3, 2020, when Red led his convoy into something that shouldn't exist. The night started normally. Red's International Lone Star rolled out of the Portland depot at 11:45 p.m., followed by trucks driven by Carlos Martinez, Judith Wong, Jamal Peterson, and the rookie Sarah Vance. They'd run this formation dozens of times. Everyone knew their position, their spacing, their radio protocol. Red liked efficiency. His convoys never had problems. The weather was typical Pacific Northwest March. Cold rain, heavy clouds, but nothing dangerous. Visibility was decent. Traffic was light. By 12:30 a.m., they'd cleared the urban sprawl and were cruising through the dark stretch between Portland and Olympia, forests pressing close on both sides of the highway. "Convoy check," Red said into his CB. "Sound off. Carlos, position 2, all good. Judith, position 3, running smooth. Jamal, position 4, no problems. Sarah, position 5, right behind you guys." "Copy that," Red said. "Next check at mile marker 120. Stay sharp, people." The convoy maintained 65 miles per hour, strung out in a perfect line, running lights marking their positions. Red watched his mirrors constantly, making sure everyone held formation. The rookie, Sarah, was doing fine, maintaining proper distance, not riding anyone's tail. He was pleased with her progress. At 1:14 a.m., everything changed. Red saw it first. The road ahead began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from summer pavement, except it was 45 degrees and raining. The shimmer stretched across all lanes, a vertical wall of distorted air. Red's first thought was fog, but this was different. It had structure, texture, patterns that moved in ways fog didn't move. "All trucks slow to 45, Red commanded. "Something ahead, can't identify it. Stay in formation." The convoy reduced speed smoothly, everyone professional. As they approached the shimmer, Red could see it more clearly. It looked like the air itself was rippling, folding, doing something impossible. His headlights hit it and seemed to bend, the beams curving away at strange angles. "Red, what is that?" Carlos's voice crackled over the radio, tight with concern. "Don't know. Everybody stay calm. If I brake, you brake. Got it." A chorus of acknowledgments. Red's truck hit the shimmer at 45 miles per hour. Sensation was indescribable, like driving through a waterfall made of electricity. His entire body tingled. Every hair stood on end. His vision went white, then inverted, colors flipping to their opposites. Black became white, white became black. The dashboard lights turned, then they were through. The highway looked the same, but it was. Red knew it instantly, the way you know when you've walked into the wrong house, even if the layout matches your own. The asphalt was too perfect, no cracks or patches. The lane markers were too bright, glowing with their own luminescence. And the forest on either side wasn't quite right. The trees were too uniform, too geometrically placed. "Red," Judith's voice scared now. "What just happened?" "Everyone okay?" Red asked, his hand steady on the wheel even though his heart hammered. "Sound off." They all responded. All 5 trucks had made it through the shimmer. They were still in formation, still moving forward, but the GPS units in every truck had gone dark. The mile markers were gone, and when Red tried his cell phone, it wouldn't even turn on. "Maintain speed and formation," Red said, forcing calm into his voice. "We'll find an exit, figure out what happened." But there were no exits. The highway stretched endlessly forward, perfectly straight, no curves, no on-ramps or off-ramps, no signs. Just endless asphalt cutting through that too perfect forest. The rain had stopped, but the clouds remained, uniform gray covering the sky like a lid. "Red, my fuel gauge is doing something weird," Carlos said. "It's going up. I was at half tank, now it's reading 3/4. "Mine too," Jamal confirmed. "And my odometer is running backward." Red checked his own instruments. Carlos was right. The digital odometer was counting down instead of up, the numbers decreasing with each passing mile. The fuel gauge read fuller than it should, and the clock on his dashboard had stopped at 1:14 a.m., frozen at the exact moment they'd hit the shimmer. "Stay together," Red said. "Everyone keep visual contact. Do not break formation." They drove for what felt like hours but couldn't be measured because their clocks had stopped. The highway never changed. No landmarks, no variation, just that perfect straightaway through the geometric forest. Red tried the CB regularly, calling out for help for anyone, but got only silence. Then Jamal said, "Red, position 4, I see something ahead. Looks like another convoy." Red strained his eyes. Jamal was right. 5 trucks in formation, running lights on, heading in the same direction. Red's blood went cold. "Everyone hold position, don't get closer to them." But as they maintained speed, they began catching up to the convoy ahead. Slowly, steadily, the distance closed. Red could make out more details. 5 trucks, exact same spacing as his convoy. Same types of trucks. International Lone Star in the lead, followed by what looked like a Freightliner, a Volvo, and a Kenworth. The exact same combination as Red's convoy. "Oh God," Sarah whimpered over the radio. That's us ahead of ourselves." She was right. As they got closer, Red could see the license plate on the lead truck. His license plate, his truck. He watched his own running lights, saw his own cargo trailer. "Back off," Red shouted. "Everyone slow down to 30, don't catch up to them." The convoy reduced speed. The convoy ahead maintained its pace, pulling away. Red's mind raced, trying to understand. They'd driven through something, entered some kind of loop or fold in space. They were chasing their own tail somehow, trapped in a circuit. "What do we do?" Judith asked, her voice cracking. Red didn't have an answer. He was supposed to be the leader, the experienced one, but nothing in 6 years of convoy operations had prepared him for this. His mind spun through possibilities, each more impossible than the last. Wormhole, time loop, parallel dimension, hallucination, shared psychosis. "We need to try something different," Red said. "When I give the signal, everyone does a full 180. We're going to turn around and drive back the way we came." "The way we came doesn't exist anymore," Carlos said. "There's no exit." "We'll make an exit," Red said with more confidence than he felt. "On my count. 3, 2, 1 now." 5 trucks simultaneously attempted U-turns on the highway. Red cranked his wheel hard, fighting the momentum of his load. The International swung around, tires screaming. In his mirrors, he saw the others doing the same, a coordinated ballet of multi-ton vehicles performing an impossible maneuver. They ended up facing the opposite direction, engines idling, lined up in reverse order now. The highway stretched ahead of them, identical to the other direction. Perfect, endless, wrong. "Forward or back, it's all the same," Jamal said quietly. Then Sarah screamed. Red looked in his side mirror. Behind them, where they just turned around, the convoy ahead had also turned around. 5 trucks now facing the same direction as Red's group, stopped in formation, perfect mirror images. "Drive," Red said. "Everyone drive now, fast." They accelerated. The mirror convoy accelerated too, staying exactly parallel. No matter how fast Red pushed his truck, the others matched him. 70 miles per hour, 80, 90. The digital speedometer climbed, but the sensation of speed never came. It felt like they were standing still while the scenery scrolled past them like a background in a video game. "My trailer's gone," Judith said suddenly. Red checked his mirrors. She was right. Judith's truck no longer pulled a trailer. The cab, empty, fifth wheel visible behind it. Then Carlos's trailer disappeared, then Jamal's, then Sarah's. Red looked back at his own cargo, still there, still present. "Stay with me," Red said. "Don't panic, keep driving." But they were disappearing piece by piece. First the trailers, then details on the trucks themselves. Chrome trim vanished. Company logos faded. The trucks became generic, undefined, losing specificity. The drivers started radioing an alarm, describing the changes, begging Red to fix it, to save them. Red couldn't save them. He couldn't save himself. His own truck was dissolving now, the dashboard instruments blinking out one by one. The radio went silent mid-transmission. The steering wheel became less solid, more like an idea of a steering wheel than the actual thing. Through the windshield, Red saw the impossible truth. The two convoys were merging, overlapping, becoming one. His truck and the mirror truck ahead occupied the same space simultaneously, phasing through each other. He could see both versions of himself, driving and being driven, leading and following, existing in sewer position. The highway shimmered again. Red's International Lone Star burst out onto normal I-5 at 1:14 a.m., exactly where it had entered the shimmer. Behind him, 4 trucks followed in perfect formation. The GPS units all beeped as they reconnected to satellites. Cell phones showed signal. The mile markers counted properly. "Convoy check," Red said into his CB, his voice shaking. "Sound off. Carlos, position 2, all good. Judith, position 3, running smooth. Jamal, position 4, no problems. Sarah, position 5, right behind you guys." They'd lost no time. According to every clock and every log, they'd been driving normally, continuously, never entering the shimmer at all. But Red's hands trembled on the wheel. His shirt was soaked with sweat. And when he looked in his side mirror, his own reflection looked wrong, like it was slightly out of sync with his movements. The convoy completed its run to Seattle without incident. They unloaded at the distribution centers as scheduled. Red filed his paperwork, said nothing about what happened. The other drivers avoided eye contact with each other. They all looked haunted. After that night, the Tuesday-Thursday convoy runs became difficult to staff. Carlos quit trucking entirely, moved back to Mexico. Judith transferred to day routes only. Jamal developed insomnia, couldn't drive at night anymore. Sarah, the rookie, left the industry after one more run, went back to college. Kept driving the route. He's still driving it now, 3 years later. He's the only one who still runs the overnight I-5 corridor between Portland and Seattle. Dispatch thinks he's crazy, but he insists. Someone has to do it, he says. Someone has to make sure. Because sometimes, late at night, Red sees the shimmer again. It appears in his headlights, that vertical wall of distorted air waiting. He always slows down, approaches carefully. Sometimes he drives through it. Most times he doesn't. When he does drive through, he finds himself on that other highway, the perfect one, the wrong one. And he sees them there, Carlos, Judith, Jamal, Sarah. Their convoy running forever in formation, trapped in the loop, existing in that folded space between here and there. They never see him. They never respond to his radio calls. They just drive endlessly, following a leader who led them somewhere they could never escape from. Red always turns around when he sees them. Always finds his way back through the shimmer. He's learned the trick of it, learned how to navigate the in-between. He's become something of an expert on the phenomenon, though he has no one to share his expertise with. He's documented 17 other vehicles trapped in that space. Not all trucks, cars, motorcycles, even a bus once. All of them driving perfect routes on impossible highways, their occupants unaware they've left reality behind. He's tried to guide them out, but they can't hear him. They're too far gone, too dissolved into the loop. Red knows that eventually he won't make it back. One night he'll drive through the shimmer and won't be able to find his way home. He'll become like the others, another echo on an endless highway, leading a convoy that can never stop. But until then, he keeps driving the route, because someone has to bear witness. Someone has to remember that these people existed, that they drove real highways before those highways became something else. The shimmer is still there, somewhere between mile marker 114 and mile marker 120, depending on the night. It waits, and Red drives toward it again and again, testing his luck, mapping the boundaries of the impossible. One day his luck will run out, but today isn't that day. Story 5. The voice on the CB that knew too much. Leonard Briggs had been hauling freight across the Midwest for 19 years, and in all that time, he'd heard some strange things on the CB radio. Truckers got lonely, got weird, said things in the dead of night that they'd never say in daylight. Conspiracy theories, confessions, paranoid rants, ghost stories. Leonard had heard it all, most of it as the product of too many hours alone with one's thoughts. But on December 12, 2017, somewhere on Route 36 between Kansas City and Denver, Leonard heard something on Channel 19 that made him question everything he thought he knew about reality. It started at 2:37 a.m. Leonard had been driving for 6 hours straight, pushing toward a delivery deadline in Denver. The night was brutally cold, the kind of Midwestern winter cold that made your eyes water and your joints ache. His 2015 Volvo VNL handled it well, heater blasting, but the temperature gauge outside read -12 Fahrenheit. The CB had been quiet for the last hour. Most drivers were either asleep at truck stops or focused on their own thoughts. Then a voice crackled through. "Northbound Volvo at mile marker 178, you should stop for coffee. There's going to be black ice at mile marker 192, and you're going to need to be sharp for it." Leonard picked up his mic. "This is the Volvo. Who's this?" "A friend," the voice said. It was male, middle-aged, with a slight southern accent. "Take the next exit. Get coffee. Trust me, Leonard." Leonard's hand froze on the mic. He hadn't given his name. "How do you know my name?" "I know a lot of things," the voice said. "I know you're hauling automotive parts. I know you're thinking about your daughter's wedding next month. I know you're worried about making this delivery on time. And I know that if you don't stop for coffee, you're going to hit that black ice going too fast and your truck is going to jackknife. You'll survive, but the driver of the sedan you'll collide with won't." Leonard's mouth went dry. His daughter, Emily, was getting married on January 13th. He was worried about the delivery. The automotive parts were accurate, but how could some random voice on the CB know all that? "Who are you?" Leonard demanded. "Someone who's trying to help. Exit 184 is 2 miles ahead. Take it. There's a rest area with decent coffee and a clear view of the highway. Wait there for 20 minutes, then get back on the road. The black ice will have been salted by then. Please, Leonard, don't ignore this." Every instinct told Leonard to ignore the voice, to keep driving. This was some kind of prank or scam. Someone had hacked his personal information somehow, was messing with him. But something in the voice's tone, a sincerity he couldn't quite explain, made him hesitate. Exit 184 appeared ahead. Leonard made a split-second decision and took it. The rest area was small, just a parking lot and a vending machine building. Leonard pulled in, killed the engine, and sat in silence. His hands were shaking. This was insane. He was letting some stranger on the radio dictate his actions. The CB crackled. "Thank you, Leonard. Go get your coffee." "I'll explain while you wait." Leonard grabbed his thermos and walked to the vending area. The coffee was terrible, burnt and bitter, but it gave him something to do with his hands. He got back in the cab, poured a cup, and picked up the CB mic. "Okay, I'm listening. Who are you and how do you know about me?" "My name is Michael," the voice said. "And I'm you, Leonard, or rather I was you. I'm calling from February 3rd, 2018. 53 days from now." Leonard laughed, a short bark of disbelief. "Right, time travel, sure." "Not time travel," Michael said patiently. "Time communication. There's a phenomenon that happens sometimes on these old highways late at night when atmospheric conditions are just right. CB signals can bleed through time, bounce forward or backward. I've been trying for 3 days to reach you, to warn you about tonight." "This is insane," Leonard said. "In your wallet, you have a photo of Emily from her college graduation," Michael said. "She's wearing a blue dress. The photo is creased in the upper right corner because you've taken it out and looked at it so many times. Behind that photo is one of your late wife, Margaret, at Lake Tahoe in 1993. She's standing next to a rental car, laughing because she just locked the keys inside." Leonard's hand moved unconsciously to his wallet. The photos were exactly where Michael described them, exactly as described. No one knew about those photos. He carried them privately, never showed them to anyone. "How?" Leonard whispered. "Because I'm you," Michael repeated. "In my timeline, I didn't stop for coffee. I hit the black ice at 70 miles per hour. My truck jackknifed, crossed the median, and hit an oncoming car. A young woman, 23 years old, named Jessica Harmon. She died on impact. Her parents sued me, won. The company dropped me. I spent 6 months in jail for vehicular manslaughter. Emily postponed her wedding because of the trial. I missed walking her down the aisle. But that didn't happen, Leonard said. I'm here, I stopped. You stopped because I warned you, Michael said. And by warning you, I'm creating a different timeline, one where Jessica Harmon doesn't die, where you walk Emily down the aisle, where your life doesn't derail. But here's the thing, Leonard. This communication can only happen once. The atmospheric conditions, the exact positioning of satellites, the way the ionosphere is refracting signals tonight, it's all unique. After tonight, I won't be able to reach you again. He stared out his windshield at the empty rest area. Snow had started falling, light flurries that glittered in his headlights. If you're me from the future, prove it. Tell me something only I would know. When you were 9 years old, you stole a candy bar from Morrison's grocery store, Michael said quietly. A Snickers. You felt so guilty that you went back the next day and put a dollar bill in the tip jar. You never told anyone, not even Margaret. You think about it sometimes, that one small theft, and you wonder if it makes you a bad person at your core. Tears stung Leonard's eyes. That memory was buried so deep he barely remembered it himself. But it was true. All of it was true. Why is this happening? Leonard asked. Why can we talk across time? I don't know, Michael said. I've studied it, talked to people who understand physics better than I do. The best explanation I have is that certain locations, certain routes, create weak spots in time. When someone travels that route repeatedly, year after year, they leave an imprint. And sometimes, under the right conditions, those imprints can communicate with each other. Past, present, future, all existing simultaneously along the same stretch of highway. That's impossible. And yet here we are, having this conversation. Leonard drank his terrible coffee. 20 minutes had passed. Outside, a salt truck rumbled by on Route 36, spreading chemicals on the highway. The black ice was being neutralized right now in real time, just as Michael had predicted. Can you tell me other things? Leonard asked. About the future, about what happens. I shouldn't, Michael said. Every change creates ripples, but I will tell you this. Emily's marriage is happy. Your grandson, born in 2019, is healthy and perfect. You live to meet him, to hold him, to teach him how to throw a baseball. You have good years ahead, Leonard. Years I didn't get to live because of one mistake on one icy night. How long do I have? Leonard asked. How long do I live? A long pause, then long enough. That's all anyone gets. Just make it count, make the time matter. The CB started crackling with static. The connection was degrading. Michael, Leonard called. Are you still there? Getting fainter, Michael's voice said, distant now, like someone calling from the bottom of a well. Go, Leonard, drive carefully, walk Emily down that aisle. Hold your grandson, live the life I couldn't, make it matter. Will you be okay? Leonard asked. In your timeline. I'll be fine, Michael said, and Leonard heard the lie in his voice, the kindness of it. This conversation is enough. Knowing I saved you, saved Jessica Harmon, that's enough. Goodbye, Leonard, drive safe. The static swallowed the voice, and then there was only silence. Leonard sat in his for 5 minutes, crying quietly. Then he wiped his eyes, started the engine, and pulled back onto Route 36. He drove carefully, watching for ice, watching his speed. At mile marker 192, he saw the section of highway that had been salted. It gleamed wetly in his headlights, safe now, the danger neutralized. He made his delivery to Denver on time. He drove back to Kansas City. And on January 13th, 2018, he walked Emily down the aisle at her wedding, tears streaming down his face, knowing that in another timeline, another version of himself had missed this moment. Leonard researched the accident that never happened. There was no record of Jessica Harmon dying on December 12, 2017, because in this timeline she didn't die. She finished college, got a job, lived a life she never would have lived if Leonard hadn't stopped for coffee. He tried many times to recreate the conditions, to reach Michael again on the CB. He drove Route 36 at the same time, in similar weather, tried every channel. He never heard the voice again. Michael was gone, locked in his own timeline, living with the consequences of a choice Leonard didn't have to make. Leonard retired from trucking in 2019, shortly after his grandson was born. He held that baby boy and thought about Michael, about the gift of warning, about the strangeness of a universe where we can communicate across time to save ourselves from our own mistakes. He keeps his CB radio in his garage now, permanently tuned to channel 19. Sometimes late at night, when he can't sleep, he goes out and turns it on, listening to the chatter of truckers on highways across America. He listens for voices that know too much, for warnings from the future, for echoes of timelines that branch and split with every choice we make. Just once, he heard something. A voice that sounded like him, calling out coordinates and a time. Leonard wrote them down. Route 36, December 12, 2:37 a.m. His own warning, perhaps, bouncing back through time, creating a loop. Warning himself, who warned himself, who warned himself, echoing backward and forward forever. Leonard thinks about paradoxes sometimes, about bootstrap loops and causality. If Michael warned him, preventing the accident, then Michael never experienced the accident, so how could Michael warn him? The logic circles endlessly, but Leonard has learned that logic is less important than outcome. Jessica Harmon is alive. Emily had her father at her wedding. A grandson exists who might not have existed. Reality is flexible enough in these contradictions. The CB radio occasionally picks up strange transmissions, voices that predict weather before it happens, warnings about accidents that then don't occur, truckers calling for help on highways that don't exist yet. Leonard listens to all of it, logs it carefully, tries to understand the patterns. He's become a believer in the thin places, the weak spots where time folds over on itself. Highways are perfect for this, he's concluded. They're liminal spaces in between places, traveled by people in transition. Someone driving the same route hundreds of times leaves an impression, creates a groove in time. And sometimes those grooves overlap, past and future touching for just a moment. Leonard wrote a letter to Michael once, even though he had no address to send it to. He wrote it anyway, sealed it, and keeps it in his desk. It says, "Thank you for the gift of the life I got to live. Thank you for carrying the burden of the life you didn't. I hope somehow, somewhere you found peace. I hope you know it mattered. You mattered. The choice you made to warn me, it rippled outward in ways you can't imagine." Jessica Harmon became a teacher. She's influenced hundreds of kids. Emily's son will grow up to be something special, I can already tell. And I got years I wouldn't have had. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, other me. I'm living it for both of us. The letter sits undelivered, a message to a man who exists in a timeline that may or may not still exist, that may have been erased or overwritten when Leonard made a different choice. But Leonard believes Michael is still out there, somewhere in the multiverse, driving his own roads, living with his own regrets. And maybe, just maybe, knowing he saved his other self is enough to make his burdens lighter. Leonard died peacefully in 2024, 7 years after the conversation that saved his life. His grandson found the letter in his desk, read it, didn't understand it, but he kept it anyway, sensing it was important. Someday, perhaps, when that grandson is older, driving his own roads, he'll tune into channel 19 and hear a voice that knows too much. And he'll remember his grandfather's letter, and he'll understand that time is not a straight line but a web, and we are all connected across it in ways we can barely comprehend. The CB radio in Leonard's garage still sits tuned to channel 19. Sometimes, very late at night, it crackles to life even though no one's there to listen. Voices echo through it, warnings and conversations, timelines speaking to each other across the dark. And somewhere on 6, at mile marker 192, reality is just a little bit thinner, a little bit more flexible, where two versions of one man reached across impossible distance to save lives that hadn't been lost yet. Story 6. The rest stop that repeated forever. Vincent Chen had been driving for 14 hours straight when he pulled into the rest stop on I-70 in eastern Colorado. It was 3:47 a.m. on November 8, 2019, and exhaustion had settled into his bones like concrete. His 2017 Mac Anthem needed fuel, and he needed coffee, a bathroom, and maybe 20 minutes of shut-eye before tackling the last 100 miles to Denver. The rest stop was unremarkable. Standard layout, fuel pumps under fluorescent lights, a main building with bathrooms and vending machines, a few parking spaces for cars, and a separate lot for trucks. Two other big rigs sat in the truck area, both dark and silent, their drivers presumably asleep in their cabs. Vincent pulled into a spot, killed the engine, and sat for a moment in the sudden quiet. His body ached. He'd been hauling construction equipment from St. Louis, a heavy load that had fought him on every hill. The November wind had been brutal, crosswinds pushing his truck across lanes. He was too old for this, he thought. 53 years old, 26 years of trucking, and every year it got harder. His knees hurt, his back hurt, even his hands hurt from gripping the wheel. Vincent climbed down from the cab and headed for the building. The cold hit him immediately, dry Colorado cold that sucked the moisture from his lungs. His breath formed clouds. The sky was clear, stars brilliant against absolute blackness, no moon. His boots crunched on gravel as he walked. Inside, the rest stop was two bright fluorescent lights humming. The tile floor was that institutional beige gray that looked dirty even when clean. A coffee station sat against one wall, two pots warming, one regular and one decaf. Vending machines lined another wall, offering snacks and drinks. The bathrooms were in the back, marked with those universal stick figure signs. Vincent hit the bathroom first. It was empty, clean enough, smelled like industrial sanitizer. He did his business, washed his hands, splashed cold water on his face. His reflection in the mirror looked haggard, dark circles under his eyes, stubble gray on his jaw. When did he get old? He got coffee from the station, poured it into his thermos. The regular pot was fresh, still hot. He added 2 sugars, no cream, then grabbed a candy bar vending machine. His dinner had been a gas station sandwich 8 hours ago. This would have to do. Back outside, Vincent stood by his truck and drank the coffee. It was bad coffee, bitter and over-extracted, but the caffeine hit his system like a blessing. He could do this. Another hour or 2 of driving, maybe. He'd get to Denver by 6, unload by 8, grab a real breakfast, and sleep in a real bed at the motel he'd already reserved. He checked his phone. No signal. Not unusual out here. Colorado had dead zones everywhere. He climbed back into his cab, settled into the driver's seat, turned the key. The engine rumbled to life. Vincent checked his mirrors, prepared to pull out, and noticed that the 2 trucks that had been parked in the lot were gone. Weird. He hadn't seen them leave, hadn't heard their engine start. Maybe they'd pulled out while he was in the bathroom, and he just hadn't noticed. Vincent pulled out of the rest stop and back onto I-70, heading west. The highway stretched empty before him, a ribbon of dark asphalt cutting through darker prairie. He got back up to speed, settled into the rhythm of driving. The white line strobed past in his peripheral vision. The truck hummed its familiar song of engine and road noise. 20 minutes later, he needed a bathroom again. That was odd. He'd just gone. But maybe the coffee was working through him faster than usual. Vincent saw a rest stop ahead, the same standard configuration, and pulled in. He parked, climbed down, and walked toward the building. Something tickled at the back of his mind. Something familiar about this rest stop. The layout was the same as the last one, but that made sense. Most rest stops along I-70 were built to identical specs. Same buildings, same layouts, just different locations. Inside, he hit the bathroom again. Same beige-gray tile. Same industrial sanitizer smell. Same fluorescent hum. He washed his hands, noticed his reflection looked exactly as haggard as it had 20 minutes ago. Shouldn't the caffeine have perked him up a bit? Back in the main area, Vincent refilled his thermos from the coffee station. The regular pot was still fresh, still hot. He grabbed another candy bar from the vending machine. Different candy bar this time, a Kit Kat instead of a Snickers. Variety. Outside, he drank his coffee and looked around. Two other trucks were parked in the lot, both dark and silent. Vincent's skin prickled. The same two trucks, he couldn't be sure. One was a Peterbilt, the other a Freightliner. Common enough models, probably not the same ones. He climbed back into his cab, started the engine, pulled onto and headed west. 20 minutes later, he needed a bathroom again. This time, alarm bells rang in Vincent's head. Something was wrong. He hadn't drunk enough coffee to need 3 bathroom breaks in an hour. And when he pulled into the rest stop, the same rest stop, a different rest stop, the sense of déjà vu was overwhelming. He parked in the same spot. The same 2 trucks sat in the lot, dark and silent. Vincent got out and walked slowly toward the building, his heart rate climbing. The layout was identical. The lighting was identical. The gravel crunched the same way under his boots. Inside, everything matched his memory perfectly. Same tile, same lights, same coffee station, same vending machines. Vincent stood in the center of the room and turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. This wasn't just similar. This was the same place. The exact same rest stop. He checked the bathroom, same smell, same fixture. His reflection looked the same. He came back out and examined the vending machines more carefully. The candy selection was identical, same brands in the same positions. The Kit Kat he'd bought was gone, already eaten. But there was another Kit Kat in the same slot, waiting to be purchased. Vincent's hands shook as he poured coffee. The pot was fresh, still hot, as if it had just been brewed, even though he'd poured from the same pot 40 minutes ago. He didn't grab a candy bar this time. He walked outside and stood by his truck, staring at the other 2 rigs, the Peterbilt and the Freightliner. He walked over to them, boots loud on the gravel. Both cabs were dark. He peered into the Peterbilt's window. Empty. No driver sleeping inside. No personal effects, just an empty cab. The Freightliner was the same, empty, lifeless, like display models, not actual working trucks. Vincent ran back to his Mac, climbed in, and grabbed his atlas. He traced I-70 through Colorado with a shaking finger. There were 3 rest stops along this stretch of highway, spaced roughly 40 miles apart. He stopped at the first one, should have passed it by now, should be approaching the second one. But the mileage on his odometer didn't make sense. It showed he'd only driven 12 miles since his first stop. He checked his GPS. No signal. The screen showed a blank gray void, no map, no position indicator. He tried his phone again, still no service. He tried the CB radio, static on all channels. Vincent made a decision. He would drive past this rest stop, would not stop, would push on until he reached Denver, or at least until something changed. He started his engine, pulled out of the parking lot, and accelerated onto I-70. He drove for like half an hour. His dashboard clock was useless, stuck at 3:47 a.m., the same time he'd first pulled into the rest stop. But he counted his breaths, timed the mile markers passing, tried to gauge the distance. 20 miles, 25, 30. The rest stop appeared ahead. No, Vincent said aloud. No, no, no. But yes, the same configuration, the same lights. And when he reflexively pulled in, why was he pulling in? He didn't want to pull in, but his hands turned the wheel anyway. His foot hit the brake. The same 2 trucks sat in the same parking spots. Vincent parked, got out, walked inside, everything identical, fresh coffee, full vending machines, empty bathroom. His reflection looking exactly the same, shock and fear frozen on his face. He tried to break the pattern. Instead of getting coffee, he grabbed a soda from the machine. Instead of using the bathroom, he didn't. He walked back outside immediately, climbed in his truck and drove. 20 minutes later, his phone stopwatch still worked at least. The rest stop appeared ahead. He drove past it, didn't pull in. Kept going, foot firm on the accelerator, speedometer reading 65 miles per hour. He watched the rest stop disappear in his mirrors, shrinking into the distance behind him. He drove for an hour straight, watched the odometer climb. 50 miles, 60 miles, 70 miles. The highway stretched endlessly forward, no other rest stops, no exits, no signs, just road and darkness. Then ahead, lights appeared, the rest stopped. Vincent slammed his fist on the steering wheel. The horn blared loud in the empty night. He screamed, a wordless sound of frustration and terror, but he pulled in anyway. His hands did it without his permission, turning the wheel, guiding the truck into the parking lot, into the same spot next to the same two phantom trucks. He tried to stay in his cab, tried to just sit there, wait it out, see what happened. But an overwhelming urge to go inside built in his bladder, his throat, his entire body. Need bathroom, need coffee, need to go inside. It wasn't optional, it was compulsion. Vincent fought it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. The urge became pain. His bladder screamed. His mouth turned to sandpaper. He needed to go inside. He needed to. He opened the door and climbed down. Inside, everything was the same. But this time, as Vincent poured his coffee, he heard something. A sound from the back of the building, from somewhere beyond the bathrooms. A rhythmic thumping, like machinery, or like something heavy repeatedly hitting a wall. Vincent set down his thermos and walked toward the sound. Past there was a door marked "Employees Only." He'd noticed it on previous loops but hadn't paid attention. Now he pushed it open. Behind the door was a hallway, concrete floor, and unpainted drywall, clearly not meant for public access. A single bare bulb hung from the ceiling. The thumping was louder here, coming from a door at the end of the hall. Vincent approached slowly. His rational mind screamed at him to turn around, go back to his truck, but his feet kept moving. Reached the door. No marking, no sign, just a plain door with a simple handle. The thumping was directly behind it, rhythmic and mechanical. Thump, thump, thump. He opened the door. Inside was a room full of machinery. Vincent couldn't identify most of it, strange assemblages of gears and pistons and incomprehensible components. But at the center of the room was something he understood. A loop of conveyor belt, running in a circuit, and on the belt was a perfect miniature of the rest stop. The building, the parking lot, the trucks, everything. The miniature moved along the belt in a continuous loop, passing through a scanner or sensor of some kind that flashed each time the model passed under it. And sitting on the model, tiny but visible, was a miniature truck. Vincent's truck. Vincent stared. The miniature completed its loop, passed under the scanner, and reset to the beginning of the belt. The thumping sound was the scanner activating, marking each cycle. Thump. Loop complete. Thump. Loop complete. Thump. "What is this?" Vincent whispered. "The mechanism," a voice said behind him. Vincent spun around. A man stood in the doorway wearing a maintenance jumpsuit. He was middle-aged, bearded, with kind eyes. He looked tired, bone-deep tired, the way Vincent felt. "Who are you?" Vincent demanded. "I'm the attendant," the man said. "I keep the loops running, make sure the coffee stays fresh, make sure the bathrooms are clean. It's my job." "What loops? What is this place?" "A fold," the attendant said. "A crease in space and time. This rest stop exists between moments, between miles. Some people drive right past it, never notice. But some people, when they're tired enough, vulnerable enough, they fall into the fold. They start looping." "How do I get out?" Vincent asked, his voice breaking. "You don't," the attendant said sadly. "I'm sorry. Once you're in the loop, you're part of the mechanism. You'll drive this stretch forever. 20 minutes, stop. 20 minutes, stop." "Forever?" "No," Vincent said. "No, there has to be a way." "There was a way," the attendant said. "Years ago, but I missed it. I was the first one, you see. The first driver who fell into the fold. That was 1987, 32 years ago. The other trucks in the parking lot, those drivers have been here almost. We keep looping, keep existing, trapped in the mechanism." Vincent looked at the miniature on the conveyor belt. His tiny truck moved along the path. Thump. Reset. Thump. Reset. "Who built this? Why?" "I don't know," the attendant said. Some cosmic accident maybe, or maybe it's intentional, some kind of engine that powers something bigger. I've stopped trying to understand. I just maintain it, keep it running. What else can I do? Vincent felt tears on his cheeks. My family, my daughter, I was supposed to retire next year. I was supposed to. I know, the attendant said gently. We all had lives, we all had plans. The highway doesn't care. Just needs drivers, needs motion, needs the loop to continue. I'm sorry, Vincent, I'm truly sorry. Vincent noticed the attendant had used his name. How did you know? I know everything that happens in my rest stop, the attendant said. I've watched you loop 17 times now. Each time you try something different. This is the first time you found the back room. I'm glad. It's lonely being the only one who knows. Now you know too. Now you can help me maintain it. I don't want to maintain it. Vincent shouted, I want to leave. Then leave, the attendant said. Go get in your truck, drive, see where it takes you. Vincent ran, back down the hallway, through the building, out into the cold night. He threw himself into his cab, started the engine, and floored the accelerator out of the parking lot. The truck fishtailed on the gravel, tires screaming, then straightened out on I-70. Vincent pushed it to 70, 80, 90 miles per hour. Too fast for a loaded truck, dangerous and reckless, but he didn't care. The rest stop appeared ahead. Vincent drove past it. The loop happened anyway. Time folded, space folded, and suddenly he was pulling into the parking lot again, his hands on the wheel obeying commands his brain didn't give. Park. Get out. Go inside. The compulsion was absolute. He fought it 27 more times, each loop making him weaker, the mechanism wearing down his resistance. Finally, exhausted beyond measure, Vincent stopped fighting. He let the loop carry him. Pull in, park, go inside, get coffee, use bathroom, return to truck, drive, repeat. The attendant was right. This was his existence now. He was part of the mechanism, a component as crucial as the gears and conveyor belt in the back room. The rest stop needed drivers to loop through it, needed motion to sustain itself. Vincent provided that motion. Years passed, or maybe no time passed at all. The loop existed outside normal time, a pocket that repeated infinitely. Vincent stopped counting cycles after 1,000, or 10,000, or 100,000. The numbers became meaningless. He saw other drivers occasionally, new additions to the loop. They went through the same stages: confusion, panic, resistance, acceptance. Some took longer to break than others. Vincent helped them when he could, explained the mechanism, showed them the back room. It didn't help, not really, but it made him feel less alone. His body stopped aging. The loop preserved him at 3:47 a.m. on November 8, 2019, forever 53 years old, forever exhausted, forever needing coffee and a bathroom. His daughter got married without him. His grandchildren were born and grew up. His wife remarried. His company sold his truck at auction. The world moved on. But Vincent Chen drives his 20-minute loop on I-70 in eastern Colorado, from the rest stop to the rest stop, forever and always. If you drive that stretch late at night, tired and vulnerable, you might fall into his loop. You might see the same rest stop appearing again and again. You might meet Vincent, pouring coffee in the fluorescent brightness, or the attendant, maintaining the mechanism in the back room. And if you're very unlucky, you might become part of the loop yourself. Another miniature truck on the conveyor belt, another driver compelled to park, to enter, to repeat. The mechanism always needs more components. It's hungry for motion, for lives, for the endless repetition that powers whatever cosmic engine this is. Vincent hopes you drive right past, hopes you never see the rest stop, never fall into the fold. But if you do, he'll be there to greet you, to explain, to welcome you to forever. It's lonely in the loop. More company would almost be nice. Almost. Story 7. The load that kept getting heavier. Raymond Tucker picked up the load in Portland, Oregon on March 21, 2016. And from the moment he hooked up the trailer, something felt wrong. The shipping manifest said he was hauling 12,000 pounds of machine parts to a manufacturer in Boise, Idaho. Standard cargo, standard route, nothing unusual. But when Raymond performed his pre-trip inspection, walking around the trailer, checking the tires and connections. The weight felt off. He'd been trucking for 22 years. He knew what 12,000 pounds felt like hitched to his 2014 Peterbilt 389. He knew how the suspension settled, how the fifth wheel bore the weight, how the whole rig balanced. This felt heavier. Not dramatically heavier, just enough to notice. 15,000 pounds, maybe 16,000. Raymond checked the manifest again. 12,000 pounds, clearly printed. He checked the trailer's weight tag. Tare weight, roughly 28,000 pounds total, within legal limits, well under his truck's capacity. Everything was in order on paper, but it felt wrong. Raymond considered refusing the load, but he'd been in a dispute with his dispatcher for weeks about being too picky, turning down runs for nebulous reasons. If he rejected this load based solely on a feeling, he'd probably get fired. He needed this job. His youngest son was starting college in the fall. Tuition needed paying. Raymond swallowed his discomfort, signed the paperwork, and pulled out of the Portland distribution center at 11:15 a.m. The first 50 miles were normal. I-84 heading east, leaving the Portland metro area, entering the Columbia River Gorge. Beautiful scenery, towering cliffs, and the Columbia River running alongside the highway. Raymond had driven this route dozens of times. He settled into the familiar rhythm, cruise control set at 65, radio playing classic rock at low volume. Around Hood River, about 60 miles in, Raymond noticed his fuel consumption was higher than it should be. He'd burned through a quarter tank when he should have only used about an eighth. He checked his gauges. Everything read normal. Engine temperature good, oil pressure good, no warning lights. But the fuel gauge didn't lie. He was burning through diesel faster than the cargo weight justified. He also noticed his speed dropping. The cruise control was set at 65, but when he crested hills, his speed dropped to 60, then 55, like he was pulling a heavier load than his truck could comfortably handle. On the descents, the engine brake engaged more aggressively than it should, fighting momentum that shouldn't exist. Raymond pulled off at a rest area near the Dalles, 90 miles from Portland. He parked and got out to inspect the trailer again. Everything looked normal. The tires weren't flat or underinflated. The brakes weren't dragging. The cargo straps were secure. Nothing had shifted. He walked to the back of the trailer and tried to open the rear doors. They wouldn't budge. The doors were secured with the shipper's seal, a plastic tag with a unique ID number that matched the manifest. Raymond wasn't supposed to break the seal until he reached Boise, but he grabbed it and pulled, curiosity overriding protocol. The seal broke. Raymond swung the doors open and peered inside. Wooden crates stacked and secured. Everything looked exactly as described on the manifest. Machine parts, 12 crates, roughly 1,000 pounds each. Raymond climbed up into the trailer and walked between the crates, checking for anything unusual. Crates were solid, heavy, properly labeled. Nothing weird. Nothing wrong, except the trailer felt heavier than it looked. Raymond climbed down, closed the doors, and secured them with a spare seal he carried. He'd note the broken seal in his log and explain it as a random inspection. He got back in his cab and pulled onto I-84, continuing east toward Boise. By the time he crossed into Idaho, the weight had increased again. Raymond knew it the way he'd known it in Portland. The familiar feel of his truck had changed. The suspension sat lower. The engine worked harder to maintain speed. Going up hills, even gentle grades, the Peterbilt struggled, RPMs climbing, temperature creeping toward the high end of normal. Raymond had to downshift more frequently, had to push the throttle harder. His fuel gauge dropped faster. He'd burned through half a tank 90 miles after filling up at the Dalles. He should have had 3/4 left. Raymond's hands tightened on the wheel. This was impossible. Weight didn't just increase. Physics didn't work that way. Cargo was cargo. 12,000 pounds was 12,000 pounds, and it didn't mysteriously become heavier during transit. Yet his truck was responding as if the load had doubled. He pulled into a way station near Ontario, Idaho, right after crossing the state line. Commercial vehicles were required to stop, get weighed, ensure they weren't overloaded. Raymond hoped the scale would show him he was imagining things, that the cargo was exactly 12,000 pounds as specified. He pulled onto the scale, waited for the reading. The attendant's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. "Peterbilt, you're showing 44,000 pounds gross weight. You're legal, have a safe drive." Raymond's blood went cold. 44,000 pounds gross. His truck, empty, weighed about 18,000 pounds. That meant his cargo weighed 26,000 pounds. More than double what the manifest claimed. He pulled off the scale and parked in the lot next to the weigh station. His hands shook as he rechecked the manifest. 12,000 pounds, black and white, clearly printed. He got out and walked back to the weigh station office. "Excuse me," he said to the attendant, a middle-aged woman with gray hair. "Can you double-check my weight? I think your scale might be wrong." She looked at her computer screen. Peterbilt 389 Oregon plates. Showed 44,000 pounds. Scales accurate, we calibrate it weekly. "That's impossible," Raymond said. "My manifest says I'm hauling 12,000 pounds of cargo." The attendant shrugged. "Shippers lie sometimes. Maybe they to save on fees. Happens more than you'd think. But you're under the 80,000 pound limit, so you're legal. Not my problem if your shipper lied." Raymond walked back to his truck in a daze. 26,000 pounds. The cargo had doubled in weight somehow. Or had he been lied to? Had the shipper loaded more than they reported? But why, and how would that even be possible? He'd watched them load the trailer, had counted the crates himself. 12 crates, roughly 1,000 pounds each. He opened the trailer again, counted the crates, 12 crates, same as before. Same labels, same apparent size. He tried to lift one just to gauge the weight. It barely budged. Weigh more than 1,000 pounds. Each crate felt like it weighed 2 tons or more. But that was impossible. If each crate weighed 2 tons, 12 crates would weigh 48,000 pounds, far more than his weigh-in showed. The math didn't work. Nothing worked. This entire load was wrong. Raymond got back on the road. He had to deliver it, had to complete the job. Maybe once he offloaded in Boise, this nightmare would end. He'd report the weight discrepancy, let the company deal with it. But every mile, the trailer got heavier. He felt it in his bones, in the way the truck responded. Climbing hills became a battle. His speed dropped to 40, then 30, then 25, engine screaming in low gear, temperature gauge climbing toward the red zone. He had to pull over twice to let the engine cool down. Other trucks passed him easily, their drivers giving him confused looks. Why was he struggling so much on these gentle Idaho hills? His truck was rated for 80,000 pounds. He should be handling this load easily. But by the time Raymond reached Mountain Home, Idaho, about 50 miles south of Boise, he was convinced he was hauling 50,000 pounds, maybe more. The truck crawled up inclines. The brakes heated dangerously on the descents. He burned through another tank of fuel in a distance that should have used a quarter tank. He pulled into a truck stop in Mountain Home and weighed himself on their CAT scale. The readout showed 62,000 pounds gross. Raymond stared at the number. An hour ago, he'd weighed 44,000 pounds. Now he was 62,000. The cargo was growing heavier as he drove, adding weight from nowhere, violating every law of physics. He called his dispatcher from the truck stop, hands shaking so badly he could barely hold the phone. "I need you to contact the shipper," Raymond said. "Something's wrong with this load, it's getting heavier." Heavier? His dispatcher, a woman named Brenda, sounded confused. "What do you mean heavier?" "I mean the weight is increasing," he said. "I weighed 44,000 pounds at Ontario. Now I'm showing 62,000. The cargo is somehow gaining weight." A long pause. "Raymond, are you feeling okay? Maybe you need to take a break, get some rest." "I'm not crazy," Raymond shouted. "The scale doesn't lie. I'm overweight now. I can't legally drive this truck." "Raymond, calm down," Brenda said. "Look, just get to Boise, deliver the load. We'll sort this out afterward." "I can't drive this. I'm over the legal limit." "Then figure it out," Brenda snapped, her patience exhausted. You've got 3 hours to make your delivery window or the customer refuses the shipment. I don't care how you do it, just get it done." She hung up. Raymond sat in his cab, paralyzed. He was overweight, illegal to drive. If he got pulled over for an inspection, he'd be fined, potentially lose his CDL. But if he didn't deliver, he'd definitely lose his job. And there was still the unanswered question. What the hell was in those crates? He made a decision. He'd open the crates, see what he was actually hauling. Break every rule, void every seal, but at least he'd know. Raymond got his crowbar from the toolkit and climbed into the trailer. He chose the nearest crate and pried at the lid. The wood was thick, nailed securely, but he was motivated. The lid cracked and splintered. He pulled it free. Inside the crate was dirt. Just dirt. Dark, rich, almost black soil packed densely. Raymond stared at it, his brain refusing to process. Machine parts. The manifest said machine parts. Why was he hauling dirt? He opened another crate, more dirt, and another, dirt. Every crate contained the same thing, densely packed earth, heavy and moist and completely inexplicable. Who ships dirt? Why would anyone pay to haul dirt from Portland to Boise? And why would dirt keep getting heavier? Raymond scooped up a handful. It felt like normal dirt, smelled like normal dirt. But as he held it, he felt it pulling at him. A subtle gravitational tug, like the dirt itself had mass beyond its physical volume. He dropped it, wiped his hands on his jeans. Something was very, very wrong with this cargo. Raymond closed the trailer, sealed it as best he could, and got back in his cab. He sat there for 10 minutes trying to decide what to do. Then he started the engine and pulled out of the truck stop, heading north toward Boise. He'd deliver the load. He'd let whoever was receiving it deal with the wrongness. He just wanted this nightmare to end. The last 50 miles took 3 hours. Raymond could barely reach 40 miles per hour on flat highway. Hills were impossible. He had to take the shoulder several times, flashers on, while traffic stacked up behind him. Other drivers honked, gestures. His engine temperature danced at the edge of the red zone constantly. By the time he reached the delivery address in Boise, his gross weight was over 70,000 pounds. He degained another 8,000 pounds from Mountain Home to Boise, dirt somehow accumulating mass as he transported it. The delivery location was an industrial complex on the outskirts of Boise, surrounded by empty lots and warehouses. Raymond pulled in, his truck groaning under the inexplicable weight. A man in a suit waited by a loading dock, checking his watch impatiently. "You're late," the man said as Raymond climbed down. "I know, there's been a problem with the load." "No problem," the man said. "We'll take it from here, back into the dock." Raymond wanted to explain, wanted to warn the man about the weight, but exhaustion and fear kept him silent. He backed the trailer into the dock, felt the truck's suspension sigh with relief as dock workers unlatched the trailer. Raymond unhooked the fifth wheel, pulled the truck forward, and parked. The dock workers opened the trailer. Raymond watched from his cab. They brought out forklifts, began unloading the crates of dirt. If they were surprised by the contents, they didn't show it. They worked quickly, efficiently, moving the crates into the warehouse. Raymond waited for his paperwork, for someone to sign off on the delivery. The man in the suit came over with a clipboard. "Sign here." "What was in those crates?" Raymond asked. "Machine parts," the man said without blinking, just like the manifest said. "It was dirt," Raymond said. "I opened them, it was just dirt." The man looked at Raymond with eyes that were suddenly much colder. "You opened sealed cargo, that's a violation of your contract. I could report you, have your license suspended." "What was I hauling?" Raymond demanded. "What was that dirt?" "You were hauling machine parts," the man repeated slowly, like talking to a child. 12,000 pounds of machine parts. That's what the manifest says. That's what you'll report. Anything else would be problematic for your career. He handed Raymond a signed delivery confirmation and walked away. Raymond looked at the paperwork. It confirmed delivery of 12,000 pounds of machine parts. No mention of dirt, no mention of weight discrepancies. Raymond drove his empty truck to a nearby truck stop and weighed himself. 18,000 pounds. The correct weight for his empty truck. All the impossible weight was gone. offloaded in Boise. He never found out what he'd actually delivered. Inquiries to the shipping company went unanswered. The delivery address in Boise showed as a shell corporation when he researched it later. The man in the suit didn't exist according to any. Raymond stopped asking questions eventually. He finished his career, retired in 2019, and never spoke about the load that kept getting heavier. But sometimes he dreams about that dirt, that impossible cargo that violated physics. He dreams he's still driving those Idaho hills, his truck groaning under weight that shouldn't exist, burning fuel that should last miles longer, hauling darkness from somewhere to somewhere else, a courier for forces he doesn't understand. And sometimes, late at night, he wonders what would have happened if he hadn't delivered it. If he'd refused, turned around, dumped the cargo, would the weight have kept increasing? Would it have eventually collapsed his truck, pulled it through the highway, burrowed into the earth with gravitational force that shouldn't exist in mere dirt? He doesn't know. He'll never know. Some questions don't have answers, or have answers so disturbing that not knowing is better. Raymond lives with the not knowing, carries it the way he carried that impossible load, heavy and unexplained, a weight that never quite leaves him even though he's long since unhooked the trailer and walked away. Story 8. The accident that happened yet. Gerald Thompson saw his own death on December 7, 2015, while driving southbound on Highway 101 through Northern California. It was 4:22 p.m., light fading into that blue-gray twilight that makes distance hard to judge. Gerald's Freightliner Cascadia was loaded with lumber, heading from Eureka to San Francisco, and he'd driven this route so many times he could navigate it in his sleep. That's when he saw the accident. About a quarter-mile ahead, on a curve where the highway cut through redwood forest, Gerald saw wreckage. A massive pileup, multiple vehicles, metal twisted and smoking. A semi-truck jackknifed across all lanes, cars crumpled against it, emergency flashers blinking. As Gerald approached, he could see details. A blue sedan crushed under the truck's trailer, a red pickup on its side, debris scattered across both lanes. Gerald immediately began braking, downshifting, bringing his heavy load to a controlled stop. He grabbed his CB radio. Southbound 101 at mile marker 73, we've got a major accident, multiple vehicles. Is anyone else seeing this? Do we have emergency responders en route? Static. No response. Gerald activated his hazard lights and carefully approached the wreck. Something was wrong. No other traffic had stopped. In fact, no other traffic existed. The highway was completely empty in both directions, which was bizarre for this time of day. Highway 1 always had traffic. As he got closer, Gerald saw the worst of it. The jackknife truck was a Freightliner Cascadia, same model as his, crushed and twisted beyond recognition. Through the shattered windshield, he could see the driver slumped over the wheel. The cab was the wrong color though, silver instead of his white. Different truck, not his. Still, the similarity was unsettling. Gerald parked 50 yards back from the wreck and climbed down with his emergency triangles and first aid kit. His boots crunched on the asphalt as he approached. The air smelled wrong. No smoke, no burning rubber, none of the acrid chemical stench that always accompanied major accidents. Just the clean smell of redwood forest and ocean air. He reached the blue sedan first. It was crushed catastrophically, the driver's side completely caved in. Gerald peered through the window trying to see if anyone inside needed help. The driver was a middle-aged woman, dark hair, glasses. She was clearly dead, her body bent at an angle that human spines couldn't achieve. But as Gerald stared, something impossible happened. The woman blinked. Gerald jumped back, his heart hammering. Dead people didn't blink. He looked again. The woman was motionless now, exactly as before. Had he imagined it? He moved to the red pickup lying on its side. The driver here was a young man, early 20s, still strapped into his seat but very obviously dead, his neck at a wrong angle. Gerald reached out to check for a pulse anyway, medical training overriding his certainty. The young man's eyes opened and looked directly at Gerald. "You shouldn't be here," the corpse said. Gerald screamed and stumbled backward, falling on his ass on the highway. This wasn't possible. This wasn't happening. The young man's eyes had closed again, his body motionless, clearly dead. But Gerald had heard the words. Not imagined, not hallucinated, heard them. Gerald scrambled to his feet and ran to the jackknifed Freightliner. He had to see the driver, had to understand what he was looking at. He climbed up on the twisted cab, ignoring the way the metal groaned under his weight, and looked through the shattered windshield. The driver was Gerald. Same face, same age, same slight beer belly and gray-flecked beard. The dead man wore the same flannel shirt Gerald was wearing, same work boots, same wedding ring. It was Gerald Thompson, dead at the wheel of his truck, blood running from a head wound, staring sightlessly at nothing. Gerald touched his own face, confirming he was real, solid, alive. But there was his corpse, undeniably his, 10 feet away. He saw the company logo on the door panel of the wrecked truck. Same company. He saw the load, lumber secured under tarps. Same cargo he was hauling. "This hasn't happened yet," a voice said behind him. Gerald spun around. An old man stood on the highway wearing a highway patrol uniform from the 1970s, complete with the old-style hat and badge. His uniform was immaculate despite the wreckage around them. He smiled kindly at Gerald. "What?" Gerald managed. "This accident," the old man said, gesturing at the carnage. "It hasn't happened yet. You're looking at the future. Specifically, you're looking at what happens at 4:46 p.m. today if you continue driving the way you've been driving." "I don't understand," Gerald said. "You're tired," the old man said. "You've been driving for 8 hours straight. No stops, no breaks, pushing to make your delivery window. At 4:46 p.m., you're going to come around this curve going 55 miles per hour. There's going to be a deer in the road. You're going to swerve to avoid it, overcorrect, and jackknife your truck across both lanes. 3 cars are going to pile into you within 30 seconds. 5 people are going to die, including you." Gerald's legs went weak. "How do you know this?" "Because I'm here to warn people," the old man said. "When the highway knows an accident is coming, when the conditions line up just right, sometimes it shows the accident to the drivers who need to see it. Gives them a chance to change things. I'm the messenger." "This is insane," Gerald said. "Is it?" The old man walked over to the crushed blue sedan. "This is Michelle Carter, 47 years old. She's a school teacher. Right now, at this moment, she's actually 5 miles behind you driving home from work. If you continue on your current path, she's going to die here in 24 minutes. But if you change your path, she lives. She'll teach for another 18 years, influence hundreds of kids. One of those kids will grow up to cure a disease." Ripples, Gerald. "Everything we do creates ripples." "I don't believe in precognition," Gerald said, "or time travel or whatever this is." "You don't have to believe," the old man said. "You just have to choose. Continue driving tired and this happens. Or stop at the rest area 3 miles ahead, take a break, let your mind settle. Then when you come around this curve at 4:58 p.m. instead of 4:46, the deer will already be gone. Michelle Carter will be safely ahead of you. The young man in the pickup will take a different route. None of this happens." "Why me?" Gerald asked. "Why can I see this?" "Because you're susceptible," the old man said. "You're at the exact balance point between making the right choice and the wrong one. If you were going to stop or definitely continue, you wouldn't see this. But you're undecided. Part of you knows you're too tired, should stop. Part of you wants to push through. You're balanced on a knife's edge, and when someone's balanced like that, sometimes the highway shows them which way to fall." Gerald looked at his own corpse again. The face was slack, lifeless. Blood matted his hair. "If I stop at the rest area, this definitely doesn't happen." "Definitely," the old man confirmed. "I've done this a long time, Gerald. I know how the branches work. Stop for 30 minutes, get coffee, rest your eyes, then drive this section careful and fresh. Everyone lives." "What are you?" Gerald asked. "A ghost, an angel. I'm a highway patrolman who died in 1976, the old man said. "I made the mistake of not stopping when I should have. Drove tired, crashed my patrol car, killed myself and 2 civilians. Been trying to make up for it ever since. The highway gave me a second purpose. I warn people. I show them their futures. Most don't listen, but some do. Those few make it worthwhile. The accident scene began to fade like a photograph exposed to sunlight. The vehicles became transparent, the bodies dissolved into air. The old man smiled at Gerald one last time. 3 miles, rest area on the right. Coffee in 30 minutes, that's all it takes. Then Gerald was sitting in his truck on the highway exactly where he'd been before he saw the wreck. His clock read 4:22 p.m. No accident ahead, just empty highway curving through redwoods. His CB radio crackled with normal chatter, truckers discussing traffic and weather. Gerald's hands shook on the steering wheel. Had he hallucinated? Fallen asleep for a moment, dreamed the whole thing, but it had felt so real. He could still smell the redwood forest, still hear the old man's voice. A sign appeared ahead, rest area 3 miles. Gerald made a decision. He took the exit, pulled into the rest area, parked his truck. He got terrible coffee from a vending machine, sat at a picnic table and forced himself to wait 30 minutes. Other truckers came and went. Time crawled. His delivery window was tight, but he waited. 30 full minutes. At 4:58 p.m., Gerald got back on Highway 101 and approached the curve at mile marker 73. No deer, no accident, no wreckage. Just a gentle curve through beautiful forest, late afternoon light filtering through the trees. He continued to San Francisco, made his delivery, and spent the night at a truck stop outside Oakland. He couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what he'd seen, wondering if it had been real. The next morning, Gerald searched online news for accidents on Highway 1 near Eureka. Nothing from December 7th. No pileups, no fatalities. He searched for Michelle Carter, schoolteacher. Found her on Facebook, alive and well, posting about her students' Christmas concert. She was alive because he'd stopped, or she'd always been going to be alive, or he'd hallucinated the entire thing. Gerald didn't know, couldn't know. But 3 weeks later, Gerald was at a truck stop in Oregon when another driver, a guy named Bill, told a story over coffee. Bill said he'd been driving Highway 101 in California, saw a massive accident that turned out not to be there. Wreckage, bodies, emergency flashers. Then he blinked and it was gone. An old highway patrol officer had appeared and told him to stop for a break. Bill had thought he was losing his mind. "Did you stop?" Gerald asked. "Yeah," Bill said. "Figured I was too tired if I was hallucinating. Took a break, got coffee. Felt like an idiot, but safety first, right?" "Right," Gerald said quietly. "Safety first." He met 2 more drivers over the next year who'd had similar experiences. Different highways, different accidents, but always the same pattern. Exhausted drivers seeing future crashes, warned by the old highway patrolman, told to rest. The ones who listened lived. The ones who didn't, Gerald tried not to think about those. Gerald developed a reputation for being safety obsessed. He took breaks religiously, even when it meant missing delivery windows. His company complained, but his record was spotless. No accidents, no incidents, no close calls. He drove carefully, professionally, always alert. He never saw the old patrolman again, never witnessed another future accident. But he drove every stretch of highway with the knowledge that time was thinner than people believed, that the road sometimes showed you things you needed to see, that the line between what is and what might be could blur for those who needed the warning. Gerald retired in 2020 after 28 years of driving. He'd had no accidents, no fatalities, no serious incidents in his entire career. At his retirement party, someone asked him the secret to his safety record. Gerald thought about the answer for a long time. "I learned to listen to warnings," he finally said. "And I learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is stop. Just stop, rest, let the moment pass. Most accidents are preventable if you're paying attention to the signs." Everyone assumed he meant traffic signs, warning signs, the obvious indicators of danger. Gerald didn't correct them. How could he explain that sometimes the signs glimpses of futures that haven't happened yet, shown by a dead patrolman who spent decades trying to make amends for his own fatal mistake. Highway 101 still curves through the redwoods at mile marker 73. Drivers pass through every day, most of them unaware that this spot is a thin place, where exhausted minds can sometimes perceive the branching paths of fate. The old patrolman is still there, still watching, still waiting for that specific kind of tired driver who's balanced between making a good choice and a fatal one. If you drive that section late in the day, tired from hours behind the wheel, you might see him. You might see your own accident, your own death, the ripples of damage you're about to create. And if you do, please listen, please stop, get coffee, rest, let the moment pass. The highway is trying to save you. The old patrolman is trying to save you. Don't ignore the warnings. Michelle Carter retired from teaching in 2033. She influenced 843 students over her career. One of them did cure a disease, just as the old patrolman said. Pancreatic cancer, the breakthrough came in 2031. Thousands of lives saved because of one student's research, one student who had a teacher who lived because Gerald Thompson stopped for coffee. Ripples. Everything we do creates ripples. The highway knows this. The old patrolman knows this. And Gerald Thompson, retired trucker, knows this too. He sits on his porch in Arizona now, watching the sunset, thinking about all the futures that didn't happen because he listened to a ghost on a California highway. Sometimes preventing disaster is as simple as admitting you're tired, pulling over and letting 24 minutes pass while you rest your eyes and drink bad coffee. That's all it took. That's all it ever takes. Story 9. The hitchhiker who was already dead. Franklin Wade picked up the hitchhiker on Interstate 29 in South Dakota on a frozen January night in 2014. The temperature was minus 20 degrees, wind chill far worse, the kind of cold that could kill an exposed person in minutes. When Franklin's headlights caught the figure standing on the shoulder, waving frantically, his first instinct was to keep driving. Company policy for bad passengers. Leaving someone out in that cold felt like murder. Franklin pulled his Mac Pinnacle onto the shoulder, hazard lights flashing. The hitchhiker was a young man, maybe 25, wearing jeans and a thin jacket completely inadequate for the weather. No hat, no gloves. He should have been dead already. He ran to the passenger's side and climbed in gratefully. "Thank you, Jesus, thank you," he gasped, breath clouding in the sudden warmth of the cab. "I thought I was done for. What the hell are you doing out here?" Franklin demanded. "You got a death wish." "Car broke down," the young man said, shivering violently. "About 5 miles back. I've been walking for an hour, phone's dead, nobody would stop." Franklin shook his head. "You're lucky you're not dead. This cold doesn't mess around. Where you headed?" "Fargo," the young man said. "I'm trying to get to Fargo. You going that way?" Franklin was. Fargo was another 90 miles north. "I can take you that far. What's your name?" "Ryan," the young man said. "Ryan Kowalski, thank you for stopping. Seriously, you saved my life." Franklin pulled back onto I-29, heading north. Ryan held his hands in front of the heater vents, trying to warm up. Franklin studied him in the dome light. Ryan looked normal, solid, real. Not a ghost or hallucination, just a kid who'd gotten stranded in deadly weather. They rode in silence for a while. Franklin tried making conversation, asking Ryan where he was from, what he did for work. Ryan's answers were vague. From Minnesota, worked construction, had been visiting a friend in Sioux Falls. Nothing suspicious, just a guy who'd had bad luck. Around mile marker 143, Ryan said, "I'm sorry." Franklin glanced over. "Sorry for what?" "For not telling you the truth," Ryan said quietly. "About who I am, about what happened." Franklin's hands tightened on the wheel. "What do you mean?" "I didn't just break down 5 miles back," Ryan said. "I broke down 5 years ago. January 19, 2009. Right around here. Same stretch of I-29, same kind of weather. My car died and I tried to walk to the next exit. I didn't make it. They found my body the next morning, frozen solid." Franklin laughed nervously. "That's not funny, man." "I know it's not funny," Ryan said. "I'm dead, Franklin. I've been dead for 5 years. I'm a ghost or an echo or whatever you want to call it. I died on this highway and I've been replaying that night ever since, trying to get to Fargo. I never make it. I always freeze before I get there. Get out, Franklin said. Get out of my truck right now. I can't, Ryan said. I need to finish the journey, that's how it works. I have to make it to Fargo or I'm stuck here forever, repeating this night over and over. You're the first person who stopped for me in 5 years. Please don't make me get out. Franklin's mind raced. This was insane. The kid was crazy, or Franklin was crazy, or this was some kind of elaborate prank. If you're dead, prove it, Franklin said. Do something ghostly, go transparent, or walk through a wall or something. It doesn't work like that, Ryan said. I'm solid most of the time. I feel real because I need to feel to complete the journey. But there are signs. Look at your side mirror. Franklin glanced at his driver's side mirror. He could see his own reflection clearly. Then he looked at the passenger side mirror. Ryan wasn't visible in it. The passenger seat appeared empty. Vampires don't have reflections, Franklin said stupidly. Not ghosts. Ghosts don't have reflections either, Ryan corrected. At least not always. Mirrors sometimes show the truth. I'm not really here, Franklin. I'm just a memory that's trying really hard to be real. Franklin pulled over. His heart hammered in his chest. This isn't possible. And yet here I am, Ryan said. He looked sad, tired, resigned. I've tried this so many times, walking the highway hoping someone would stop. A few times a year someone does. Usually they figure out something's wrong and kick me out, or I fade before we reach Fargo. I've never made it. I'm starting to think I never will. What happens if you get to Fargo? Franklin asked. I think I stop, Ryan said. I think I finally get to rest. Fargo was where I was trying to go when I died. My girlfriend lived there. I was going to propose to her that weekend. I had the ring in my pocket when I froze. If I can just make it there, deliver the ring to her, maybe I can be done with this. Franklin sat in the idling truck trying to process. Every rational part of his brain insisted this was impossible, but the side mirror didn't lie. And something in Ryan's voice, a deep exhaustion that transcended mere physical tiredness, rang true. You still have the ring? Franklin asked. Ryan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it. Inside was an engagement ring, simple and pretty. I've had it for 5 years, or I've had it for one night that's lasted 5 years. Time's weird when you're dead. Franklin made a decision. Okay, we're going to Fargo. I'm going to get you there. What's your girlfriend's name? Sarah, Ryan said, his voice breaking. Sarah Mitchell. She lived on 8th Avenue South, apartment 4B. I don't know if she still lives there. We'll find her, Franklin said. They drove through the frozen night. Franklin kept glancing at the passenger seat, confirming Ryan was still there. In the mirrors, the passenger seat remained empty. On the radio, stations faded in and out with strange interference whenever Ryan spoke. The temperature inside the cab fluctuated, sometimes warm, sometimes ice cold. Can I ask you something? Franklin said. Why me? Why did I stop when other people did? I don't know, Ryan said. Maybe you're a good person. Maybe you have a sensitivity to whatever I am. Maybe it was just chance. Does it matter? I guess not, Franklin said. They crossed into North Dakota. Ahead, lights glowing against the dark prairie. Ryan leaned forward, staring at the city with intensity. Almost there, he whispered. After 5 years, I'm almost there. Franklin took the exit into Fargo, following Ryan's directions toward 8th Avenue South. The streets were empty, buried in snow, the late hour and brutal cold keeping everyone inside. Franklin found the apartment building, a modest 3-story complex. Lights showed in a few windows. Apartment 4B, Ryan said, 4th floor. This building only has 3 floors, Franklin observed. Ryan looked at the building, confusion crossing his face. That's not right. It should be 4 floors. It was 4 floors. 5 years is a long time, Franklin said gently. Things change. Maybe they renovated. Let's go check, see if Sarah still lives here. They climbed out of the truck. The cold hit like a physical blow. Ryan didn't seem to notice. Franklin buzzed the apartments trying to find a Sarah Mitchell. No one answered. Most of the residents were asleep or not home. Franklin tried a different approach. He buzzed every apartment until someone answered. An irritated voice crackled through the intercom. "What?" "Sorry to bother you," Franklin said. "I'm looking for Sarah Mitchell." "Does she still live here?" "No Sarah here," the voice said. "Try Building C, couple blocks down." Building C. Franklin and Ryan walked through the freezing night, 2 blocks that felt like miles. Ryan was fading, Franklin realized, becoming more transparent, less solid. His footsteps no longer left prints in the snow. "Stay with me," Franklin urged. "We're close." They found Building C. Franklin buzzed apartments again, asked for Sarah Mitchell. This time, a woman's voice answered. "This is Sarah." Sarah Mitchell used to have a boyfriend named Ryan Kowalski. A long pause. "Who is this?" "My name's Franklin Wade. I'm a truck driver. This is going to sound crazy, but I have something for you from Ryan. Can I come up?" Another long pause. "Ryan's been dead for 5 years." "I know," Franklin said. "Please, just give me 5 minutes." The door buzzed open. Franklin looked at Ryan. The young man was barely visible now, a shimmer in the air. "Come on," Franklin said. "Last part." They climbed to the 3rd floor. Apartment 3C, the door opened before they could knock. A woman stood there, late 20s, dark hair, wearing sweatpants and a college hoodie. She looked tired, wary, but also curious. "Sarah?" Franklin asked. "Yes," she said. She looked past Franklin, looked right through Ryan without seeing him. "You said you have something from Ryan." Ryan stepped forward, directly in front of Sarah. He pulled out the ring box and held it out. "I was going to propose," he said, even though she couldn't hear him. "That night when I was driving to see you, I had everything planned. Dinner, then a walk by the river, then I'd get down on one knee. I loved you so much, Sarah. I'm sorry I never made it." Sarah's eyes widened. She was staring at the ring box, which floated in midair, held by invisible hands. "How are you?" "He's here," Franklin said quietly. "He's been trying to get to you for 5 years. He wants you to have the ring." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. She reached out slowly and took the ring box from Ryan's ghostly hands. The moment she touched it, Ryan gasped. Color returned to him. For just a moment, he became fully solid, fully visible. Sarah saw him. "Ryan," she whispered. "I love you," Ryan said. "I always loved you. I'm sorry I didn't make it. I'm sorry for everything." "I love you too," Sarah sobbed. "I never stopped. I waited, God. I waited so long for you to come back, even though I knew you couldn't." Ryan smiled. "You don't have to wait anymore. Move on, Sarah. Be happy. Find someone who can actually be there for you. I'll be okay now. I made it. I finally made it to Fargo." He turned to Franklin. "Thank you for believing, for not giving up on me." Then Ryan Kowalski faded like morning mist, dissolved into nothing, gone. The apartment hallway was suddenly emptier, colder. Sarah stood there holding the ring box, crying. Franklin put a hand on her shoulder. "He's at peace now," Franklin said. "He needed to finish his journey. You helped him do that." Sarah invited Franklin in for coffee. They talked for hours. She told him about Ryan, about their relationship, about the night he died driving to see her. She'd never married, never moved on. Part of her had been waiting for him to come back, even knowing it was impossible. She showed Franklin the death certificate, the newspaper articles. Ryan Kowalski, 23 years old, found frozen on I-29 on January 20th, 2009. The articles mentioned the ring found in his pocket, how heartbreaking it was that he'd been on his way to propose. Franklin told her about picking up Ryan's ghost, about the drive to Fargo, about how Ryan had faded when he finally completed his journey. Sarah believed him. How could she not, after seeing the ring floating in midair, after seeing Ryan's ghost for just a moment? "Do you think he's really at peace?" Sarah asked. "I do," Franklin said. "I think he just needed to know you got the ring, that you knew he was trying to reach you. Now he knows. He can rest." Franklin left Fargo as dawn broke, the sky turning gray with morning light. He thought about Ryan, about 5 years of repeating one frozen night, about the determination it took to keep trying, keep hoping someone would stop and help. Franklin made it a point after that to always stop for hitchhikers, no matter what company policy said. He picked up dozens over his remaining years of trucking. Most were ordinary people with ordinary problems. But twice more, he picked up passengers who didn't show up in mirrors, who faded as they reached their destinations, who needed one final journey to find rest. He helped them. He always helped them. Because Franklin understood something most people don't. The world is full of unfinished business, uncompleted journeys, people stuck between where they died and where they were trying to go. Sometimes they need help. Sometimes all it takes is someone willing to believe, willing to drive them those last miles, willing to help them deliver one final message to the people they loved. Sarah Mitchell did move on eventually. She met someone new in 2016, got married in 2017. But she kept Ryan's ring in a special box, and on the anniversary of his death, she drove out to the spot on I-29 where he died and left flowers. She did this every year until she passed away herself in 2041, at the age of 54, peaceful and surrounded by family. When she died, she found Ryan waiting for her. He'd been waiting since that night in 2014 when Franklin Wade helped him complete his journey. Death didn't mean goodbye, it turned out. It just meant waiting in a place outside of time until the person you loved could join you. Ryan had all the patience in the universe now. He could wait. And Franklin, he died in 2022, retired from trucking content with the life he'd lived. When he crossed over, he found Ryan and Sarah waiting to thank him. They weren't the only ones. A dozen other ghosts stood there, people Franklin had helped reach their destinations, complete their journeys, find their peace. "Thank you," they said in chorus. "Thank you for stopping. Thank you for believing. Thank you for caring." Franklin smiled. "Had to stop," he said. "Too cold to leave someone out in that weather, just doing what anyone would do." But that wasn't true. Most people wouldn't stop. Most people would drive right past, too busy or too scared or too convinced that ghosts don't exist. Franklin stopped. He always stopped. And because of that, a dozen unquiet spirits found rest. The highway remembers Franklin Wade. On cold January nights on I-29 in South Dakota, truckers sometimes see a ghostly figure on the shoulder, waving for help. Most drive past, but those who stop find that their passenger is already gone when they look over, evaporated like frost in. They're left confused, questioning their perception, wondering if they imagined it. They didn't imagine it. They were tested, and they passed or they failed, depending on their choice. The highway is always testing us, always asking, will you stop for someone in need? Will you believe in things you can't explain? Will you help complete a stranger's unfinished journey? Franklin always chose yes. His truck is gone now, sold for scrap years ago. But his example remains, a reminder that sometimes the most important thing we can do is stop, open the door and let someone climb in from the cold, even if they're already dead, especially if they're already dead. Because death doesn't end need, doesn't end love, doesn't end the drive to reach the people who matter. Ryan made it to Fargo. Thanks to Franklin, he finally made it. Story 10. The radio signal that came from nowhere. Mitchell Park had been hauling freight across the Southwest for 11 years when the radio signal interrupted his drive on September 23, 2017. He was on U.S. Route 50 in Nevada, that legendary stretch of highway nicknamed the loneliest road in America, driving through darkness so complete it felt like being at the bottom of the ocean. His Volvo VNL pushed east toward Ely, loaded with electronics from Sacramento, and the monotony had numbed his mind into autopilot. Then his radio changed stations by itself. Mitchell had been listening to classic rock on a Reno station, signal fading in and out as he traveled farther from the city. The music cut out abruptly, replaced by static. Then through the static, a voice. Clear, urgent mail. Attention all eastbound travelers on U.S. Route 50, this is an emergency broadcast. Do not repeat, do not stop at mile marker 94. Do not investigate the lights. Do not investigate any vehicles or persons you see at that location. Continue driving. This message will repeat. The voice cut out. Static returned, then the classic rock station faded back in mid-song as if nothing had happened. Mitchell grabbed his CB radio mic. Anyone else just hear that broadcast on the FM? Emergency warning about mile marker 94, static. Then a response. Negative, I didn't hear anything. You okay there, driver? Yeah, I'm fine. Just thought I heard something weird. Mitchell checked his GPS. He was approaching mile marker 90. Mile marker 94 was less than 5 minutes ahead. He'd driven this route dozens of times, never seen anything unusual at marker 94. Nothing desert, sage, brush, and darkness. But something about the broadcast unsettled him. The voice had sounded genuinely frightened, urgent in a way that emergency broadcast tests never did. And it had come through on a commercial radio station, not the emergency broadcast system. That wasn't how warnings worked. Mile marker 91 passed, then 92. Mitchell turned down his music, paying closer attention to the road ahead. The night was absolutely clear, millions of stars visible in the unpolluted sky. No moon, just stars and the cone of his headlights cutting through blackness. Mile marker 93 appeared in his lights, and ahead at mile marker 94, Mitchell saw lights, not car lights, not commercial lights, something else. They hovered about 20 feet off the ground, arranged in a perfect geometric pattern, 6 lights forming a hexagon. They glowed with a cold blue-white luminescence that didn't look like any artificial light Mitchell had seen before. No visible support structure, no vehicles beneath them. Just 6 impossible lights floating in the desert night. Mitchell's first instinct was to pull over, investigate. His truck began slowing. Then he remembered the radio warning. Do not stop. Do not investigate. He kept his foot steady on the accelerator, maintaining speed. As he approached mile marker 94, the lights began to pulse. The hexagon pattern rotated slowly, and Mitchell felt something press against his mind. Not physical pressure, but mental, like someone trying to open a door in his skull. A compulsion, overwhelming and insistent. Stop. Get out. Come closer. We need you. Stop, 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 stop. Mitchell gritted his teeth and gripped the wheel harder. No, he said aloud. Not stopping, not today. The lights pulsed faster. The mental pressure increased. Mitchell's foot moved toward the brake pedal without his permission. His hands began turning the wheel toward the shoulder. He fought against his own body, muscles straining, veins standing out on his neck. No, he screamed. His truck blasted past mile marker 94 at 65 miles per hour. The moment he passed the marker, the mental pressure vanished like a popped balloon. Mitchell gasped, his shirt soaked with sweat. In his rearview mirror, the lights still hovered, but they were fading, shrinking, going back to wherever they came from. Mitchell drove for another 5 miles before his hands stopped shaking enough to pull over safely. He parked on the shoulder, killed the engine, and sat in the sudden silence. His heart hammered. His head ached. What the hell had just happened? He tried to rationalize it. Hallucination, exhaustion. Maybe he'd been driving too long to sleep, but his sleep log was current. He de-rested 6 hours ago, was nowhere near his fatigue limit, and the radio warning had been real. He'd heard it clearly. Mitchell picked up his CB radio. Anyone near mile marker 94 on Route 50? I need to talk to someone about what's out there. A long silence, then a crackle. A different voice this time, older, gravelly. You saw the lights? Yes, Mitchell said. What are they? No one knows, the voice said. They appear every few months, always at mile marker 94. Been happening for years. The broadcast warning is automated, triggers when the lights appear. Most people don't hear it. The ones who do hear it and ignore it, well, they don't continue down the road. What happens to them? Mitchell asked. They stop, get out of their vehicles, walk toward the lights. Then they disappear. No trace, no vehicles left behind, nothing, just gone, swallowed up by whatever those lights are. We've lost 17 people over the last decade. Who's we? Mitchell demanded. Who are you? Doesn't matter, just know that you did the right thing, you kept driving. The compulsion to stop is almost impossible to resist. Most people can't fight it. You did, you're lucky. Lucky, Mitchell repeated hollowly. Right. Don't go back, the voice warned. Don't try to investigate. Don't tell authorities about what you saw. They already know and they can't stop it. All we can do is warn drivers when the lights appear and hope they listen. You listened. Now forget about it and keep driving. The CB went silent. Mitchell tried calling back but got no response. He sat there for another 20 minutes collecting himself before starting his engine and continuing east toward Ely. He made his delivery. He drove back west a few days later, taking a different route to avoid Route 50. But curiosity gnawed at him. What were those lights? Why did they appear at mile marker 94? Where did the disappeared people go? Mitchell started researching. Missing persons reports along Route 50. He found scattered cases over the years. People vanishing without explanation. Vehicles found abandoned. No signs of foul play. The disappearances clustered around mile marker 94, though the official reports never mentioned that detail. Just last seen on U.S. Route 50 in central Nevada. He found online forums where people discussed the phenomena. The lights had been sighted since at least 1972. Some witnesses described them as alien craft. Others said they were dimensional portals. Still others thought they were military experiments. No consensus, just speculation. One post caught Mitchell's attention. A woman named Karen posted in "My brother disappeared at mile marker 94 in 2003. He was driving east, called me on his cell phone, said he saw beautiful lights and was going to check them out. That was the last anyone heard from him. His truck was never found. He was never found. But I swear, sometimes late at night I get calls from his old phone number. When I answer, there's no voice, just a sound like wind or like something breathing. I know it's him. He's trying to tell me something, but he can't. He's stuck somewhere and he can't get back." Mitchell sent Karen a private message asking for details. She responded immediately, desperate to talk to anyone who believed her. They spoke for hours. Karen's brother, David, had been a truck driver like Mitchell. Experienced, careful, not the type to take unnecessary risks, but something about those lights had compelled him to stop. "Do you think he's still alive?" Karen asked. "Somewhere. Could he still be alive after 14 years? Mitchell thought about the compulsion he'd felt, that overwhelming mental pressure. He thought about 17 people over a decade, all disappearing without trace. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I don't think alive and dead are the right words for whatever happened to him. I think he's somewhere else, somewhere those lights lead." "Can we get him back?" Karen asked. "I don't know," Mitchell said. "I don't even know where to start." But he started trying. Mitchell became obsessed with mile marker 94 with the lights, with finding answers. He monitored Route 50, waiting for reports of the lights appearing. He talked to other truckers who'd seen them, collected accounts, built a database. Most witnesses had driven past, resisting the compulsion. A few had stopped, gotten out, and then somehow broken free of the compulsion before reaching the lights. They described feeling like they were walking through molasses, like reality was thicker near the lights. One witness, an elderly trucker named George, said he'd gotten within 50 feet before his dead wife's voice called him back. She said, "George, that's far enough. Turn around. Come home." I heard her clear as day, even though she'd been dead 3 years. So I turned around, walked back to my truck, and got the hell out of there. The lights were angry. I felt them being angry, if that makes sense, like they were upset I'd escaped. Mitchell wondered if the lights were conscious, if they had intention. Were they feeding on people, collecting them, transporting them somewhere? He had no answers, just questions stacking on questions. In January 2019, Mitchell got a message through the trucker forums. An anonymous user said, "The lights will appear at mile marker 94 on January 27th at 11:47 p.m. Want answers? Be there, but be prepared to risk everything." Mitchell drove to mile marker 94 on January 27th. He arrived at 11:30 p.m. and parked a quarter mile away, out of range of the compulsion. He brought a video camera, a Geiger counter, and a small arsenal of tools and devices he hoped might provide data. At 11:47 p.m. exactly, the lights appeared. The hexagon formed in the air, 20 feet up, glowing with that cold blue-white luminescence. Mitchell set up his camera, pointed it at the lights, hit record. The Geiger counter registered normal background radiation. Temperature sensors showed the area around the lights was 30 degrees colder than ambient. His compass spun wildly, unable to find north. Mitchell approached slowly, resisting the mental compulsion. It was harder this time, maybe because he was on foot, more vulnerable. His mind screamed at him to stop walking toward the lights and instead run toward them. He fought it, moved at a crawl, planting each foot deliberately. At 100 feet, he could see details. The lights weren't lights exactly. They were holes, gaps in reality that glowed because something on the other side was shining through. Mitchell could see movement beyond them, shapes that didn't make sense, geometry that hurt to look at. At 75 feet, he heard voices. Dozens of voices, maybe hundreds, calling out, begging, some calling names. "Helen, is that you? Dad, help me. Please, I just want to go home." Mitchell recognized one voice, David, Corinne's brother, calling her name. "David," Mitchell shouted. "Can you hear me?" The voices fell silent. Then David's voice, clear and close. "Mitchell, how do you know my name?" "Your sister told me," Mitchell said. "Corinne, she's been looking for you." "Corinne," David said, and his voice broke. "I've been trying to call her for so long, but I can't make the calls connect. I'm stuck here, Mitchell. We're all stuck here. The lights took us somewhere and we can't get back." "Where are you?" Mitchell asked. "I don't know. Everywhere. Nowhere. It's like being in a photograph that someone's looking at. We exist because something on the other side is observing us, but we can't interact with the world anymore. We can only watch. All out hoping someone hears." "How do I get you back?" Mitchell demanded. "You can't," David said. "Once you're through, there's no return, but you can stop others from coming through. You have to close the lights, destroy them." "How?" "I don't know, but they're afraid of being forgot. They need to be seen to exist. If no one looks at them, if no one stops, they weaken. Tell people not to stop, Mitchell. Warn them. Every person who drives past makes the lights smaller. Eventually, close." The compulsion suddenly intensified. Mitchell's legs moved forward without his permission. He was walking toward the lights, unable to stop. 50 feet, 40 feet. The shapes beyond the holes became clearer. People, dozens of people, standing in a space that looked like a negative photograph. All colors inverted, all light and shadow wrong. 30 feet. Mitchell fought with everything he had but his.